Welcome, everybody, to the Fantasy and Frames pregame show. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards. This week, Gator J is too busy road tripping, and Nate Markham, well, he's whiskey, beer, and or wine tripping as he watches his Chiefs take on the Dolphins in Germany early this morning. Joining me are members of the Fantasy Frames family and extended family as we get ready to talk about every single game, the fantasy-relevant players from every single game from a redraft, dynasty, IDP, you name it, DFS perspective, and most importantly, answer all of your start and sit questions for Week 9. Let's do it. All right, folks, it's Week 9 of the NFL/fantasy football season. I'm excited. I know you're excited. Some of you are anxious. You know, you're making that push to get to the playoffs. Some of you are confident. You're pretty much locked up at this point with either an undefeated or at least a one-loss record there for your fantasy team. So whatever your situation is, we're here to help you maintain success or get on the right track. Joining me right now, we're going to have a bunch of people from Fantasy and Frames join us throughout the morning. But right now, we got Tyler Heil and Keith Fleming. Let's start with you, Tyler, our director of of Dynasty. How are you doing this morning, man?
I'm doing well. You certainly don't want me directing IDP content. I would just talk about Myles Garrett the whole time, and no one would learn anything. But I'm great, man. I'm ready to do this. Been working on the show sheet for the past couple hours, realized I haven't set any of my lineup, so I'm going to try to sneak that in while we're talking.
Yeah, doing that, and then after we get to the 12 o'clock hour, it's definitely like, oh my God, set every single lineup, and then it takes you right to kickoff, and it's like, whoo, hope I didn't miss any, and of course, you more than likely did. So, but that notwithstanding, welcoming back to the pregame show, friend of the family. You can't say enough about all of his hard work in the DFS community. You can check out all of his content at Fantasy Six Pack. Keith Fleming, welcome back, sir. How are things going with you?
It's good, man. We got another dog in the household, so animals continue to find and seek refuge in the Fleming house, and Falcons are doing Falcons things. We're 500. My coach is driving me crazy. Jalen Carter looks like the best defensive talent in, decades. So that's good. And I really appreciate the NFL for, having the best game of the week and arguably of the season at 9 a.m. in Germany. Makes a lot of sense.
For those of you who don't know, Keith Fleming was not a huge fan of Jalen Carter going to Philadelphia. Most importantly, not a huge fan of the Falcons passing him up. If you would love to see the best rant, the best fantasy football and /NFL rant of the calendar year, go to our YouTube page, like and subscribe while you're there. Look at our shorts. You'll find it. And Keith does not shy away from sharing his opinion on that. It is quite hilarious.
In the moment, too, which is my favorite part. And y'all are just needling me. I can just feel it. Gator, are you not happy with it, Keith? It's like, yeah, I'm not freaking happy.
Joining us also, we got Dave Ibrahim from Connect Go. Joining us from sunshiny California. Man, fallback just happened with the time change. How are you this morning?
Man, it's still 6 a.m. All right.
I was going to say
Getting up at 6 a.m. for the love of fantasy football.
Yeah.
It's all good, though. So I had a issue. Couldn't find my headphones, but we're good to go.
It's 6:13 in the morning there, man. How can you find anything?
Exactly. Rumbling around in the dark. Like, got to
How
go.
many cups of coffee are you in?
Talk about pretend football. Come on.
Exactly. How many cups of coffee are you in right now? Or
I'm just about to start my first. So here we go. Number one. Let's see how we go.
Very nice. Very nice. So as we do every single week, we answer all of your start sit questions that are in the chat, as well as go over every game, talk about all the relevant fantasy plays. With Keith joining us, we're going to get into some DFS plays for the week. But while we're waiting for these two participants to show, we have been promoting for a few weeks now the infamous pie bet If you all have been tuning into our social media channels, you will have seen a clip from a couple of years ago that Nate Markham and we made a pie bet over 2 IDP defensive backs. I was pro Keanu O'Neal. He was pro Jeremy Chin. We decided in Fantasy Pros IDP scoring who would have the better week. Edged me out by a couple points, but Jeremy Chin won. And on our podcast on Wednesdays, I took a pie to the face, a literal pie in the face. That was the bet. Flash forward, I want to say it was about a month ago, and 2 of our content creators, Chris Burns and Preston Evans, Chris being a Dolphins fan and Preston being a Pats fan, decided let's make a pie bet over last week's game in Week 8 between the 2 respective teams, and whoever team lost, that fan would take a pie bet. So while we're waiting for them to show up, let's just let's do a little vignette, shall we say, to set the stage for what you can expect here today.
From the dawn of time, there's been rivals. Red Sox Yankees, Lakers Celtics, Optimus Prime Megatron, Wes Bergman Johnny Bananas, Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote. But now a new one has emerged. Preston Evans, aka the Fantasy Homeboy, and yours truly, Dynasty Deviant. Oh yeah, you may think Preston is nice, but you know who he roots for? The evil empire, New England Patriots. And this weekend, it all comes to a head when the Patriots and the Dolphins square off. And when the Dolphins are victorious, I can't wait to see Preston take that pie to the face next week. Mr. Evans, homeboy, you're on notice.
When keeping it real goes wrong.
Preston, what's up, man? Good game. Like, division games are always tough. And, just want to say good game. And also, I'm not the guy that's going to say that I told you so. The Dolphins going to win. I'm not that guy. So I'm not going to say that I told you so. But, not very long ago, I can still remember Jorge mentioned betting a pie. Preston, you jumped at the chance, and I had to fight my urge to dance, because double win would make me happy for a while. Division games, they make me shiver, because rivalries always deliver. Bad news if my team goes down. Belichick always makes teams frown. But I wonder if the homeboy cried. Tua's won all 6 games he's tried against the Pats, and I can't deny when they lose, I feel so high. Preston, you are gonna get pie. Bet against the Dolphins, but the Patriots were dry. And I'm celebrating with whiskey tonight, singing Preston Evans is gonna get pied. Preston, homie, you're gonna get pied.
Yes, folks, that is what you have to look forward to this morning. It's coming up at the bottom of the hour. Yes,
That's
Preston
pretty good,
Evans.
man.
Thank you. I was drinking gin all night and got an inspiration at 1:30 in the morning, and there it is. So,
We need to get you back to work, brother.
it's the weekend. What do you want? We got Albert in the chat. Good morning. Good morning, Albert. Got Zach, FF Chalupa Batman. Gator J is joining us. Pie in the face today. Let's go. Yes, let's go. Rugaroo, what's going on, sir? Welcome back to the show. We got a bunch of questions in the chat. Let's start with some IDP here. Okay, we got linebackers for the Houston Texans, Denzel Perryman, Henry To'oTo'o. Who is the better play? I'm still rolling with Perryman. I understand the snaps were kind of even between the two, but we saw earlier in the season Perryman kind of take over that every down role. Blake Cashman, however, has been playing really well the past few weeks. But as far as the LB2 on the team, I think you're going to see Cashman and Perryman kind of take over in that linebacking core, and Perryman get back to normal snap count this week. So that's where I would roll with that. We got another one here. George Karlaftis. Yes, that's all you need to know. He's been tearing it up for the Kansas City Chiefs lately, doing really great in Fantasy Pros IDP scoring. You got to love it. Got an offensive question here. Dave, let's start with you. What do you think here? Flex Gus Bus or Chris Godwin this week?
It's Godwin. It's always Godwin. I mean, Baker is on a hot streak. I understand he had a tough game last week, but you've got to go with the guy who just scored a touchdown. The guy who's getting, I think you got 7 or 8 targets. Gus Bus. I just don't know. That was a fluke. You got Lamar Jackson, who is the RB1 on his own team. So I'm just not trusting another 3 touchdown performance from the Gus Bus. It's got to be Godwin.
Keith, you agree with that?
Is it a PPR league?
Rougarou, let us know if it's a PPR league. I'm going to assume that it is, but if it is,
I do agree. If it's not, I don't know. I think I may lean towards Edwards just because I think he might have a little bit higher floor because he's probably gonna get some red zone potential stuff. But in a PPR league, absolutely, you always got to go. To me, unless they're a running back that catches passes, which Edwards doesn't do that a lot, I'm always going to go with a number 1 or number 2 receiver.
All right, we got a question from Malcolm over
Flex
on
is
Facebook.
a funny one because you always got to think about what you need.
That's very
flexes depends on what you need. If you're 2 and 5 or 2 and 6, right now, and you need upside, then you've got to go the higher potential. You got to go balls to the wall this time. If you're sitting pretty, if you're 7 and 1, play the safe play and go Gus Bus if you don't need the points. But if you need the points and you need the dub, then high risk, high reward, right?
Absolutely. I think I do that a lot of times anyway. Just like looking at the matchup, if I really think I'm going to have a hard time beating the person, looking at like the projections and who they have in matchups and stuff, I think sometimes you have to do that where maybe you make a play that people are going to look at and go, what the hell? But that guy might score 3 points, but he's more likely to score 20, right? And you're going to probably need that 20 to win. Sometimes you have to, that's part of fantasy football. It's kind of like poker,
DeAndre Hopkins last week.
Exactly.
DeAndre Hopkins last week was a perfect example. You got to get balls to the wall, 3 touchdowns and 120 yards.
And he had done nothing. So, you know what I mean? But it was a new quarterback. Falcons are the Falcons. There was reasons to take that risk, especially if you thought you needed it.
Tyler, this next question is for you here. Flex question. Pick one, Jerome Ford, Devin Singletary, no Damian Pierce in today's matchup, Zach Moss, who just won't go away, or Michael Pittman.
If I'm ranking them, I'm probably going top to bottom. Pittman, Singletary, Ford, Moss. I know I have a little trouble with Moss. I know he's been performing. We're on week 3 of Jonathan Taylor really kind of getting more work in. So, because first couple weeks he had 6 and 8 carries. He had double-digit carries the past 2 weeks. I think we're going to see a little more Jonathan Taylor lean because he's very clearly better than Zach Moss. But yeah,
60% snap. He was 55% in the route participation last week. 30 carries the last 2 games. First 2, 14. So ramping up. I will warn people though, Panthers are just atrocious. versus the run. They've given up 130 yards in every game this season, 14 rushing touchdowns. They played 7 friggin' games. They've given up 14 rushing touchdowns. So I would probably rank them similarly, but I still kind of like Moss first just because I think there's a good chance Colts run all over the I think both of them are decent DFS plays today and fantasy plays. Singletary, because of usage, would probably be just behind Pittman because it's not like Carolina's great against the pass either. And, Jerome Ford's got a really good matchup. It's just such a mess right now, right, Tyler, with who's going to get what carries. And, I would probably have him last just because, he's coming off the injury. They definitely, I know, kind of held him back on some snaps last week. Who knows if they unleash him more this week. So I'd probably go the 2 Colts players, Singletary, Ford.
That sounds. Yeah, I think I agree. One of the things we'll get to in the next question right here regarding Michael Pittman. We talk about the fantasy points allowed. You talk about the Carolina Panthers. They rank 25th in points to wide receivers, so no bueno. But if anything, I know he's been dealing with a knee injury. But the Panthers run a lot of zone, and Josh Downs just tears it up versus zone coverage. We're seeing the target shares the past 3 weeks basically level out between him and Pittman. It's literally a game of like 1 or 2 targets going more Pittman's way. Josh Downs has been the more efficient receiver. So that scares me off for Pittman a little bit there. But going to this question here from Malcolm again on Facebook, Puka Nacua or Michael Pittman, given what I just said, I'm all on board Puka. I know he's got the knee injury, but he's slated to play this week. David, is this a slam dunk, Puka Nacua?
I don't know about Pokemon this week. I think Cooper Kupp had a down week last week. I think he recovers. I think Puka gets a decent amount of targets, but Pittman is still the guy there. And Gardner Minshew is one of the handful of pocket quarterbacks we've got, in the NFL right now. So he likes to air the ball out. He's not a running quarterback. If it's me, gun to the head, I'm taking Pittman, but it's not by a lot.
All right, we've got Carrie Markham here in the chat. Good morning. Good morning to you, Carrie. Carrie and Nate went to go see Metallica on Friday, which I am super jealous of. So kudos to you for having a good time there. We got an IDP question here. Nakobe Dean, Drew Tranquil, or Mayo. I like Drew Tranquil. We saw him come in when Willie Gay went out due to injury. Gay's missing time. Tranquil just stepped in. Whenever he has stepped in a limited capacity, his tackle floor has been steady. He's been solid. Nakobe Dean had a big game last week. That being the case, and I know it's against Philadelphia this week, I still need to see more from Nakobe Dean to feel very confident. I love the Chiefs' defense. I love what they're doing this year. Mayo, look, I know with Cody Barton being out on IR, the snaps will be there. But I feel this is more a Jamin Davis linebacking core than I do a Mayo yet. So give me Drew Tranquil in this spot here. And then before we get to our first game of the day that we'll be discussing, got a comment over here from Dylan. Start one, running back, full PPR. It's ugly. Keontae Ingram, Zach Charbonnet, Jerick McKinnon, Jeff Wilson, Latavius Murray, Kenneth Gainwell, Antonio Gibson. How many running backs do you have? Jesus. Josh,
a lot.
Etc. Crying emoji. Really crying a lot emoji. Let's go back up to Tyler. Tyler, you're basically picking at the running back waiver wire right here.
Oh,
who are you rolling with?
He's got like 35 spots on his bench or what?
Yeah.
I think what it is I think it's exactly what Jorge's saying is those guys are probably the ones he can pick up right now. And
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know Keontae Ingram's a starter, but I don't have high hopes for that offense today. If it's full PPR, I am going to go ahead and take my shot on Antonio Gibson catching a few passes. Yeah, I would be happy with 3 receptions for 50 yards. A touchdown is a bonus, so I guess I'm going Antonio Gibson there.
I'm going to lean actually Gainwell. I know he hasn't done much with DeAndre Swift being there, but we have seen him utilized in the receiving game. This should be a high-scoring affair against Dallas. Charbonnet, I really want Charbonnet to bust loose. He almost had the opportunity had Kenneth Walker not played last week. You look at the previous couple games, he's averaging just under, I want to say, 8 yards per carry. So it's there, but I just don't think yet. Latavius Murray, we don't know what Fournette's doing this week. Is he playing? Is he inactive? I don't know. Is he going to take snaps away? I still think it's James Cook's backfield. Keontae Ingram, Jerick McKinnon, Jeff Wilson. For me, they don't really inspire a lot of confidence. I'm curious to think here, Keith, what you think. But if I had to pick one, I think I'm going Gainwell. What about you, Keith?
I'm going to go Ingram. I just want usage, and he's the starter. He's the only one of all those guys that is going to get a decent amount of touches. And the fact that DiMarcio, or however you say his name, is out completely, Cardinals are going to be down throwing. I think Ingram, at minimum catches 2-3 passes just because they're going to be throwing a lot, and maybe you get a garbage touchdown with him or something. I don't like hardly any of the other guys. The only other guy that maybe I would consider honestly over him would be Kelly, because of obviously Palmer's out, and Chargers are going to have to throw the ball. There's some targets they're going to be moving around, and everybody's high on Quentin Johnson, but we ain't seen anything yet, and he's still only running a few kind of routes each week. So I could see them really leaning on Eckler a lot, which would mean that, he needs more spells of rest. That brings Kelly in, and he is somebody that catches passes and has the ability to, break a big run at any time.
David, real quick, who are you picking?
Like a fine vintage wine, I'm going with Charbonnet, the Chardonnay. I like him for a good third down, carry or fall in the end zone. Walker is a little banged up, so I can see them at least giving him a handle of carries. I can see 10 touches for Chardonnay. So let's see what he does with it.
Yeah, if he gets to 10 touches, I do really like that.
Speaking of Charbonnet and Chardonnay, we got Stacey Perez over from Mykonos saying, "What is up? Super jealous. We miss you too. Can't wait till you get back and join us all on Dynasty 365." 2 more questions, then we're going to get into the first game here. KJ over on YouTube. Devin Singletary, Charbonnet, or Roshan Johnson as his RB2 in full PPR. For me, it's Singletary, just the volume and the receiving opportunities there. Tyler, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I feel like we've been going too hard on the Zach Chardonnay. When you look at how this spelled, we've really been missing the Cabernet. I just think we've missed out on that nickname, and we've gone too hard on the Chardonnay, so we might need to roll that back a little bit.
I do prefer Cabernet over a Chardonnay, to be honest.
Devin Singletary, that's an easy one for me.
Yeah.
All right, and then we got last question here from Rougarou, IDP. Marquise Bell listed as a defensive back and linebacker. So it's funny. This is an instance in your fantasy football leagues where it's playing the game within the game. So technically he's classified as a linebacker, but on Sleeper, he's given dual eligibility as a defensive back and linebacker. So if you get linebacker floor in your DB spot, you take that any day of the week. You want that cheat code. So I like him this week. A linebacker getting me, or a defensive back giving me linebacker production. Yes. With that, let's get into our first game of the day. It's going to be kickoff, and it's already kicked off. Well, I guess we can't really talk about it, but
it's kicking off right now.
Literally just kicked off. Yeah.
Well, that sucks. Dolphins at Chiefs, 1.5. We can still talk about what we're expecting for this matchup here. And of course, we can go through this really quickly. Tyler, why don't you take it from here? Just rapid fire, just what our thoughts of the game could turn out to be.
Rapid fire, Kansas City's defense has been playing really well this year. That isn't really going to affect who I'm playing on the Miami side of the ball because that offense is a juggernaut right now. I'm playing Raheem Mostert. I'm playing Tua. Tyreek Hill, you're never benching him. Jalen Waddle to start. Otherwise, I'm not really touching Jeff Wilson. I'm not touching any of their tight ends. No other wide receivers. I'm playing their core and kind of moving on. Kansas City, same type of deal, but there are some exceptions there. You're starting Mahomes. You're starting Kelsey. Pacheco, you're starting him. I think he's my RB8 on the week right now currently. So I feel really good about him. He's been getting a ton of opportunities, seen 20-plus opportunities twice this year. He's double over 15 carries, I think, 4 out of 8 games. His targets in the last 3 games are 4, 4, 6. So he's getting plenty of opportunity. I don't know if I can spell that out any differently.
He had 13 targets all of last year. And like he's had more than that in the last 3 games. It's crazy how quickly that's evolved.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about it on Dynasty 365, but I feel really good about Pacheco over the next few years.
Oh, yeah. You want any, staple in a Patrick Mahomes offense that has a significant role if you can, especially when they're as young as he is.
Absolutely. And I don't think I've ever spelled his first name right once.
It's weird. It's like Isiah, which is like how nobody spells Isaiah, at least that I've seen. Even like Word and stuff will tell me it's wrong when I type it out. And I'm like, no, I'm looking at it. It's right.
I think the one that you got to discuss here is Rashee Rice. He's the most intriguing of all of the players in this matchup, I think. He's prime for one of those second half rookie receiver breakouts. I was not super high on Rashee Rice coming out of the draft, but you got to be able to change your opinion when you start to see these players having success and play well. And I mean, PFF Rashee Rice is like top 20 graded receiver, and he's right up there with guys like Deebo Samuel. So I'm gonna trust what he's been doing, his performance, and trust that he's taken on the number 1 wide receiver role for that team. So I will be playing Rashee Rice this week too.
Yeah, I think he's reached a point where he's pretty much an automatic start if it's a 3 receiver league.
All right, so we just talked about Pacheco and Rashee Rice. Let's talk about it from a dynasty perspective. Tyler, who are you investing in more, given the youth of these 2 players, different positions? And what would you want to offer the manager if you were trying to seek out either of these players, as well as what would you ask for these players in terms of compensation in your dynasty leagues?
So I would value them close to equally, at least dynasty wise. I think Pacheco is higher ranked within his position. But in dynasty, I think you always want to lean the young receiver because they're much more long-lasting assets that you can hang on to, and he can develop more value. Either way, I think Rashee Rice right now, if you could get him for like a high second, I'd feel really good about that. Pacheco, I don't think you can get him for anything other than a late first with how he's been performing. He's been a RB1 pretty much all year, so I would lean Rashee Rice just for long-term value and the amount you would have to spend for him right now.
All right, let's welcome to the stage here. We've got Mr. Dynasty Deviant himself, Chris Burns, Dolphins fan, awaiting the arrival of Preston Evans. Chris, first of all, welcome back to the show. Let me ask you a dynasty question regarding your Miami Dolphins. From a dynasty perspective, what are your thoughts on the value of Devon Achane? He's coming back. We're hoping that he comes back in a couple of weeks from short-term IR. Are you trying to flip him for value in terms of draft compensation, given what he was doing before he got injured? Or are you riding the train here and just saying, no, this is my guy. He's exactly why I drafted him, and that's just it?
Yeah. Can you hear me? I can't tell if my mic is working.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, at the hotel, the setup is all wonky. But yeah, when it comes to Devon Achane, I think it really depends on where you are, like in your dynasty team. Like, that you're always in 3 phases. Either you're rebuilding, you're contending, or you're pushing for that championship. You're in that titleship window. So in the middle is where you never want to be. So if you feel that you can make a push and everything, then yes, you're using Devon Achane like you're trying to get to that championship. If you are where you're not going to be in that championship window within the next 3 years, then yeah, you probably should sell him to try to get some, assets that you can use to help get you closer to where you want to be in the future. As far as what he's going to do, when he comes back, I think he's still going to be like I don't think he's going to be as dynamic as what you've seen earlier. It's kind of new and he's like explosive and everything, but he will be.
He's not going to have 12 yards every time he touches the ball. You mean it's like
he's not going to have 12
unbelievable. It's like, oh my God, it's Barry Sanders. Like, what's going on? And I'm talking about Barry Sanders from college.
Yeah. So even watching those games, like watching the games, you're like, there's no way that he is doing this. Like even in the preseason, he was really electric. But so that will slow down. It's not sustainable. But the way Mike McDaniels runs his team, it will always be a committee. Now, whether he has the larger portion of it, then yeah, maybe so. Like Mostert, that he's not long for, his career. Like he gets hurt all the time anyway. But yeah, Achane, if you are winning, then yeah, you want to keep him. If you feel that it's going to be a while before you're in that championship window, sell him for what you can get, especially if people are overzealous and they're like are really excited, like absolutely max that out. But it really depends on the build of your team, to be honest.
Let's stick with you here, Chris. Let's answer this question from Malcolm. Flex half PPR today. Chris Godwin, James Cook, Jerome Ford, Josh Downs, or Zay Flowers?
And I'm just picking one of these?
Yes, I believe so. Yep.
All right, so we'll go through like player by player. So Godwin, I mean, I kind of like where he is in that Tampa Bay offense and everything, how he'll be used. James Cook, I am not going to pick him. I just don't know exactly what's happening right there. I want to see what comes on with Lenny. Is playoff Lenny in form? Is he going to like get those goal line carries where, Lat Murray was inefficient? James Cook, not really sure. Ford, he is going to be in that he's coming off that injury. And I think that he will take the lead in that backfield again, which is one of the best running like offenses, in the league. So I like Ford. Downs, the last few weeks, I mean, the kid's been out there doing his thing. And then Zay Flowers, I think he has that floor where he's going to give you, like right at double digit fantasy and a half PPR. Well, just a little below that. That's his floor. And I kind of feel like a Seattle game is going to be maybe a shootout today. So it comes down to me, it's going to be between Ford, Downs, and Flowers. I think if you're looking for the safe play, I think that Jerome Ford is the play. If you're looking for something safe, I think he'll give you like, consistency. If you're looking for, the high upside, I think Downs has the better upside. So I would rank them as Ford, Downs, and I love Zay Flowers a lot. I hate to put him third. I just am not exactly sure how that Baltimore offense is going to look because they haven't been consistent from week to week.
You have him ranked third, but you wouldn't give him up to me for a first-round pick in our Dynasty League. I understand. It's okay. Referring to safety. David, welcome back. Question here from Kalen. PPR, Zach Moss or Kareem Hunt?
Ooh, I like Kareem Hunt. I can see them working in JT a bit more. I think Zach Moss is eventually going to start to fade away into the mist. Kareem Hunt is right now the RB1 there, so I'd rather Hunt.
All right, Keith, let's go to you now before we get to a game that has not started. Who should I play? Higgins for Addison since Cousin is out, or are you still trusting Addison despite the change of quarterback?
I'd like to know who his other receivers are, but I would probably stick with Addison. I know it's a little bit of a nightmare this week, but his volume is going to continue until Jefferson comes back. And I don't know what's up with Higgins and the Bengals in general, but something's going on. He's just not as involved. Even as Burrow's looked better the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's like Irwin's, sometimes getting more targets, or Boyd. They seem to have reached an impasse with the contract. I don't know if that's playing a part, what's going on, but for me, it's always, especially in situations like this where it's not really a great matchup for either one of them. I'm looking at who's going to get targeted more. And I mean, Addison I think is going to get peppered with target. They're going to do everything they can to get the ball in his and Hawkinson's hands today versus my shitty ass Falcons.
Speaking of your shitty ass Falcons, let's talk about them right now. Minnesota at Atlanta -4, 37.5 out for the game. Drake London, Kirk Cousins, and Justin Jefferson. Keith, let's start from a DFS perspective here. Who are your favorite plays for this matchup?
I mean, there's not a ton. This is one of those games that we had a big discussion this week on the show. Me and Joe Matz did about the quarterback position this week is just a mess, like an unbelievable mess. And so for DFS, make sure you have a quarterback and wide receivers from teams with quarterbacks that you kind of know what you're getting, because there's so many unknowns. And yeah, if you're in like the Millie Maker, these 150 entries, take your shots. Shooters take shots. That's what you do. But if you're like me and trying to win money in cash games, like I'm looking only at the solid quarterbacks. Otherwise, I would like Heineke at his price. Like you look at, he scored 12.4 points and just, one half last week. Falcons obviously have plenty of weapons, right? We've drafted 3 positional players in the first round, the top 8 picks the last 3 years. So there's talent there. I know London's out, but the guy I'm all over this week is Bijan. You look, he got a rushing touchdown last week, which that was good. The big thing is I tried to defend Ritter, but I mean, number 1 and number 3 in average defenders in the box on rush attempts are Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. And that's kind of all you need to know about what opposing defenses thought about Desmond Ritter. They were like, beat us if you can. I do think Heineke's going to be a little bit of an upgrade because he can get rid of the ball quicker. Like he's going to be able to read defenses better and, progress, get the ball out. And the big thing is I went back and looked at it last year in Washington. Of his 259 passes, 24.5% of those went to running backs. This year, Washington is only throwing at a 13% clip to running backs. So that's not a scheme or a Washington deal. That's a Heineke deal. And to prove that, last week, Bijan saw 4 of his 5 targets in the second half after they made their change. Of Heineke's 21 passes, 23% of them went to running backs. So on DraftKings, where it's PPR, and you got a guy Bijan who, if you take away the Tampa game, seeing over 5 targets per, over 4 receptions per, I think he really has a big game today. I'd be shocked if he doesn't catch at least 5-6 passes. And if the offense is able to move the ball a little bit more, obviously, hopefully that'll give them more red zone. And they're going to have to lean on the backs because with London out, I mean, really it's Pitts, who we know Arthur Smith ain't going to throw the ball to. So what else are you going to do? But I really do think that people are not counting enough the fact that Heineke, he loves throwing to running backs. Algier is not really a passing back. Patterson's still not playing that much. I think there's a chance Bijan just gets absolutely peppered with targets. And with Drake London being out, that's over 7.5 targets per game available for this passing offense.
Tyler, staying with the route of alcohol, Taylor Heineken, he's I think he's going to be a great addition. Fantasy wise, he's better for everyone on the Falcons. For Bijan, for Pitts, I mean, for London when he gets healthy, obviously, but he's a pocket QB who likes to throw the ball. And look, a good passing game gives you a good running game. So I think all in all, we're going to see a better Falcons.
I hope so.
Desmond Ritter was terrible, man. Desmond Ritter was not the answer.
In his defense, I will say that the scheme and the offensive line is not great. And it seems like Kurt Warner did a great job on Twitter the other day of showing how we're running all these complex passing plays that take 3-4 seconds to work out and evolve. And we don't have the offensive line for that, or a quarterback who is smart enough or advanced enough yet to be able to read that, okay, that's not going to work. I need to just get rid of the ball now. And it's just been a mess. It really has.
Tyler, dynasty question for you. I turned down to trade Bijan for Amon-Ra. Was that stupid or smart in the full PPR?
No.
You would have been getting Amon-Ra?
I would have been trading Amon-Ra.
No, I'd hold on to Amon-Ra.
Yeah.
I think that was a smart decision.
All right. Talking about IDPs for me in Atlanta, really the must starts are Caden Ellis and Richie Grant going over to Minnesota. It's basically Jordan Hicks, Daniil Hunter. Then you look at the 3 safeties that they've been deploying. They've really been producing for fantasy. Josh Metellus, Cameron Bynum, as well as Harrison Smith. I mean, these are lock and load must starts in your defensive back spot if you have them. If by any chance any one of them are on your waiver wire, probably not. IDP Fantasy Pro scoring, they're all floating in the DB 1, 2, 3 range. Really, defensive back is tricky they're very hot or cold, but these have been very consistent. So definitely I would be inserting all of those into your lineup there. With that, let's go to our next matchup. We got Arizona at Cleveland, minus 12.5, 38.5. Out. Still no James Conner or Kyler Murray. I believe this is Murray's upcoming last week to be activated to the active roster. Michael Wilson is doubtful. Amari DeMarcado is out. We talked about earlier Keontae Ingram assuming full snaps there. Tyler, why don't you take it away? Let's talk about Arizona.
Oh, man. Arizona.
Have fun, Tyler.
You're welcome.
All right.
Welcome.
Well, moving on to the Browns. I honestly, I'm not starting anyone on that offense. I don't want to touch it. The Browns are best defense in football right now, which is still wild for me to say. But they're bringing out Clayton Tune as a sacrificial lamb to play the Browns for this week until Kyler gets activated next week. He's going to have a lot of trouble getting the ball out. Myles Garrett is going to be all over him. Keontae Ingram is he their only active running back? Who the hell else is on their roster?
I think they elevated
Damian
somebody
Williams?
I never heard of from the practice squad or something. But basically, yes.
Isn't Damian Williams still there? I thought he was active.
Oh, yeah, he's alive.
I think he's hurt though too, isn't he?
Oh,
they
my
just
God.
declared they're not running the ball anymore, so it's just going to be a passing game. So, no running back.
I don't want to start anyone on this offense. Like, I guess I'll take a shot on Marquise Brown that maybe he catches a deep ball somewhere and gets behind him at some point.
Well, that's what sucks is he's great against man, like one of the best wide receivers in the league. And you guys play as much man as anybody, but you got to have somebody to throw it to him is the issue. I think McBride you could potentially make a case for, like especially in DFS or depending on what tight end you have, if you have a bye or something, because usually these quarterbacks, when you don't have time, you're going to try to get rid of it quick and just, the tight end obviously is one of the first person that benefits from that.
And if there's one point on the Browns defense that is, I guess you could call it weaker than the rest of it, it's their linebacking core. So if McBride can probably manage to get open over the middle of the field a little bit this week with Anthony Walker and Sione Taki back there, but that might be the only shot I'm taking there. If we're talking about the Browns, then we can talk a little bit more.
How much time you got, right, Tyler?
I'm actually stunned that the over-under for this game is only at 38.5, even with the Arizona. I mean, the implied point total for Arizona is only 13 points. But in same vein, it's only 26 for the Browns. Like, I don't – Deshaun Watson is coming back, which say what you will about Deshaun Watson. I know I've said plenty. He's a decided upgrade over P.J. Walker. So they're going to bring Jerome Ford back. He's going to be healthy. I'd start Amari Cooper. I think I'd start Elijah Moore here. Definitely starting David Njoku. He's a top 10 tight end to me. He's a must start on a weekly basis. Start both. I would start both of their running backs right now. I'd start Kareem Hunt. I'd start Jerome Ford. I feel good about their offense this week. So what that means for me usually is that the Browns are going to have a heartbreaking loss. But I don't want to factor that into
after
my
last
analysis.
week. Come on, man! Y'all pulled that one out of nowhere.
I am excited to see, curious to see the usage of Cedric Tillman after the departure of Donovan Peoples-Jones. Are they going to get him involved in the offense? Is he going to be a thing, or did they miss on another wide receiver in the middle rounds? Amari Cooper is a wide receiver 2 this week. Elijah Moore probably wide receiver 3. So I'm feeling good about all of them. And with the bye week hell that we're in with quarterbacks, I mean, we've got, who is it? So we're missing Russell Wilson. We're missing Jared Goff. We have the teams that are on bye listed up here. Broncos, Jaguars, Lions, 49ers on bye. So no Russell Wilson, no Trevor Lawrence, no Jared Goff, no Brock Purdy. We lost Kirk Cousins to injury. So Deshaun Watson is pushing QB1 ranking this week somehow. So I would
it's
start
not pushing. He is a QB1 this week. Look at the names of quarterbacks we got today. It's
ugly.
awful.
I was doing my rankings and I was I'm making notes and I see Derek Carr. I'm like, Derek Carr's probably like a mid-range QB2, back-end QB2. I'm like, holy shit, no, he's like QB10 this week. So it's ugly. The quarterback landscape is bleak this week. You're right.
I saw in one of my leagues, Tom Brady was trending as someone to pick up. I'm like, damn, desperate times, right?
Tyler, you mentioned rankings. Don't forget, folks, head over to fantasyandframes.com and check out our weekly rankings in half PPR, standard, and non-PPR and full PPR, as well as our IDP rankings. They're up there, and they will be as well updated throughout the morning. So make sure you check over to fantasyandframes.com today. Chris, let's go back to you here. We brought up Donovan Peoples-Jones. The Lions are on a bye. What is the acquisition for the Lions of DPJ do for Jameson Williams' dynasty value? Chris. Who's muted? All right, well, we'll wait for Chris. Let's go
frozen.
Back. He said he just put in the chat. He's got technical difficulties. Heading out for a minute.
No worries. Tyler, let's go back to you then.
All right.
Jameson Williams, what are your thoughts here?
I'm not feeling great about Jameson Williams right now. Seeing as they felt the need to go out and acquire Donovan Peoples-Jones, who I would probably value as the wide receiver 2 on this Lions offense right now. It's really hard to talk about Jameson Williams right now because it's confusing what to think of him. He's getting targets, he's playing, he's getting snaps, but he's just not having any success. So dynasty-wise, if I was going out to acquire Jameson Williams right now, I mean, like maybe a second. I mean, I'm sure as heck not spending a first on him. So I'm concerned for his value right now. I think we're in a wait-and-see mode with Jameson Williams.
All right, going over the IDP options here for this game. For Arizona, it's pretty simple, in terms of snap percentage and productivity. You go linebacker Kazir White. You then go for defensive back Budda Baker, who returned last week, as well as Jalen Thompson, who are finishing, and again, DB1, DB2 levels of Fantasy Pros IDP scoring. The box snap percentages are there. So just roll with them. Don't overthink it. Going to Cleveland side, Zadarius Smith was cleared. He is playing this week, but really it's Myles Garrett. Smith is more of a DL3 with DL2 upside, in my opinion. The linebacking core I'm always going to avoid in Cleveland until they actually get somebody who's quote-unquote IDP relevant. And at defensive back, Grant Delpit, he's a top 20, top 25 defensive back week in and week out. So I feel comfortable rolling with them. We got a question here from Malcolm back on Facebook. Got to pick up a tight end, Njoku or Cade Otton?
No.
What are your thoughts here?
If it's 1 week, I like Otton this week. If it's for the season, it would be Njoku. And the reason I say that, there is no team in the NFL worse against tight ends than the Houston Texans. They give up almost 9 targets per game and literally 7 receptions per to opposing tight ends. So I think Otton has a much better chance to have a good game today because, as Tyler pointed out so brilliantly, Browns are going to route. So unless Njoku does something early, I think you're going to see a lot of running on this Arizona team and not a lot of opportunities in the passing game. Now, if you're talking about somebody that you're also going to need for the rest of the year, it is absolutely Njoku, who, Tyler's right, he's a top 10 tight end for sure the rest of the way. But if you're just looking for like 1 week, like say you have a really good tight end like Laporta or Kittle who's on a bye, I would pick up Otton and play him today.
All right, let's go to our next matchup here. We got the Rams visiting Green Bay, -3.5, 38.5. Out. It's trending towards out is Matthew Stafford. Puka Nacua, it should play this week. Ernest
Stafford's
Jones.
out. They are saying it looks like it's very doubtful he's going to play.
I take that with a grain of salt with Matt Stafford.
Do you really?
He's one. Listen, I know he gets injured a lot. He's one of the toughest MFers in the NFL.
Oh, no,
he
for
plays
sure.
through everything.
What's the upside of them playing him today, though?
No, nothing. But what's the upside of Cooper Kupp coming back? I think they want to play.
Ernest Jones, linebacker, is out. which means Christian Roseboom should have an uptick in snaps that you could actually consider sliding into your LB3 spot if you roll that deep in IDP. Tyler, or let's go with David. Let's talk about the Rams. Who you feeling comfortable with this week?
I like Cooper Kupp. I mean, people who are questioning to start Cooper Kupp, stop it. Just play Cooper Kupp. He's Cooper Kupp. The running backs there, I am a little bit worried about. But look, they're always close in games. I don't know how. But like you said, Matthew Stafford somehow always finds a way. Puka, you're probably playing. I'm a little bit concerned about Puka Nacua this week. Other than that, there's not a ton of people. I mean, I know people might have to play Darrell Henderson, but I'm not excited about it. If you have to, you're probably in a really deep league. If you got other options, take it. But the running backs there is just, very questionable at best.
All right. We talk about the running back situation a little bit more. We saw Royce Freeman snaps go up a little bit more last week than Darrell Henderson. Keith, for DFS play, do you like Royce Freeman this week or any of the running backs or just in general, who's your favorite player this week in this game?
This is one of those games that I'm basically trying to stay away from. And again, there's a good bit of them. The running back position this week, to me, again, if you're doing cash games, I'm looking at spending up at running back. I'm going to have Barkley, Bijan, Jonathan Taylor in some form or fashion. And in a lot of lineups, I'll have 3 of them where I'm going to run one at the flex because there's just such a great match. Kamara, same deal, where they have amazing matchups and they're going to score a ton of points. Now, if you're in bigger tournaments, absolutely. I do like both Henderson and Freeman because this is a defense you can run on. And it is. McVay's an offensive genius. Like, you can say what you want to say, but this happened a couple of years ago. I don't even remember the name of the quarterback, but at the end of the year, they had, what was it? Was it Wolford, right? And the Rams scored like 20 points or more in all 3 games he started, and we're in all those games. And we're going, how the hell is this happening? That's just what McVay does. So the weakness against this defense is to run the ball on them. So I think you could see both Henderson and Freeman have, good days for value plays on DFS because they're both 5,100 or less. I think Henderson's 5,100 and Freeman's like 45 or 4,600.
Tyler, why don't you take us to talk about Green Bay? Let's talk about that side of the ball.
All right. So we've got a few different options on the Green Bay side of the ball. Both running backs are startable. Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon. AJ Dillon's taken a lot more work from Aaron Jones with that hamstring injury. Don't entirely understand what is going on with that. If he is hurt, why is he playing? AJ Dillon has always just been mid. He's
I don't even know if he's been mid this year, Tyler. I've seen a couple of his games.
Mid at best, awesome. We'll say that. So I guess I'm starting Aaron Jones there, just in the hopes of a big play because he's still Aaron Jones. I'll take my shots on Christian Watson and Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed's been playing really well. I believe he's leading the team in receiving yards right now, and he's continuing to ascend. So he's
Jaden Reed, by the way, real quick, Tyler, sorry. Top 10 in red zone targets among wide receivers and top 5 in red zone targets inside the 5. It's unbelievable. They obviously really like this kid, and he is very good against the zone, which the Rams run a lot. He is a great DFS play, and I'm glad that you remind me because I believe he's still only like 3,600 this week. And again, in DFS, you want 3 times their salary. That's usually when you're on your way to building a winning lineup. And I think he has done that like 5 out of 7 weeks this year, and really hasn't had that breakout game outside of the Falcons one. So I think he's a great play. And he's somebody I would really pay attention to in dynasty leagues or even just in fantasy leagues if he's available because, again, it is wild to hear a rookie, you know what I'm saying, is top 10 in red zone targets and top 5 in red zone targets inside the 5. The names that are with him are the best receivers in the league. So just something to pay attention to.
I can't believe he's 3,600 on DraftKings.
Yeah. He went down and had a good game again last week. He had 12.5 points and he was 3,700.
He's continuing to be, I mean, essentially the wide receiver one on that team. Watson had 8 targets last week, so he's certainly involved. But Jaden Reed's been playing the best football on that offense so far this year. So I've been very impressed with him. So I would start Jaden Reed. I would take my shot on Christian Watson. I guess I'd start Aaron Jones. Luke Musgrave, I'd probably stay away from, and unless you're desperate, which you very well might be.
I think you can find better options, though, like on the waiver wire, right?
Probably. Yeah, if we're talking about picking up Kate Otten, sure. Yeah, I'll play Kate Otten over Luke Musgrave today for sure.
Going to the IDP side of the ball, let's start with Green Bay. If you head over to fantasyandframes.com, Nate Markham put out his IDP start and sits. He is very high on Rashawn Gary. The Rams ranked 28th in pass blocking efficiency per PFF. Gary has on the season a 21.4% pressure rate. Just to give you an idea, folks, anything really over 13, 14 is considered good. You get close to the high teens and 20s, you're considered great. You get above 20, you're in elite territory. Only has 4.5 sacks this week. But he's very high on the fact that the Rams, obviously 28th in pass blocking, no bueno. Matthew Stafford, again, we just talked about it a little bit earlier. We don't know what his situation is, which, again, you're hoping that Brett Rippon has good pocket presence awareness. And I don't think he has it good enough to beat either Rashawn Gary or Preston Smith for that matter. Devondre Campbell finally came back, and he lit it up for fantasy managers. Quay Walker, I saw, was questionable, but has not been declared out. The defensive back situation for Green Bay, you could just stay away from. I will go back and say, going back to the linebacking situation with no Ernest Jones and Christian Roseboom being elevated to playing more snaps, Jordan Fuller could have a day with increased box snap role. So just, for a DB3 option there, Jordan Fuller wouldn't be a bad one to go with. All right, let's talk about this one. This one hurts. This next game, it hurts, but it doesn't hurt. It's like pulling off a Band-Aid slowly. Like that part sucks, but then after the Band-Aid's off, it's like, okay, that's better. That's how I feel with the Washington Commanders. And of course, we're talking about the Commanders at New England, -2.5, 41 points out for this game. Curtis Samuel, Devontae Parker. Keith, DFS matchup. Very curious to hear your thoughts here on who you like in this matchup.
Keith is not available at the moment, Jorge. Why don't you talk about some IDP? Because I'm very intrigued with what they're going to do without their 2 defensive ends.
Sure. So that is a great question. You're avoiding defensive end altogether. You're hoping that the pass rush up the middle for Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne does something, but it's not great. I will say Hill came out and played well for Montez Sweat when he was injured a little bit versus Atlanta. That being the case, I'm not recommending you start him in any form or another. You go to the linebacking situation. We talked about David Mayo a little bit earlier. The snaps are there. The opportunity is there, but I'm pro Jamin Davis. I'm a huge Jamin Davis fan, so I'd feel more comfortable starting Jamin Davis over Mayo. We go to the defensive back situation there for Washington. It's Cameron Curl. One of the reasons why the Commanders traded, I should say, Chase Young and Montez Sweat away is to save salary cap money. And a lot of money would have gone to Chase Young, had Montez Sweat this offseason. But now the Commanders have, I think close to $90 million in cap space. And, at the end of the day, they have a lot of players they need to sign. One of them being Cameron Curl. They need to lock him up to a long-term extension because he's been playing lights out for safety. You go to the other side, you go to New England. I mean, everyone seems to be banged up along that defensive line. So definitely not feeling comfortable starting anyone there. Going back to Nate Markham's IDP starts and sits, which you can find, folks, over at fantasyandframes.com. When we talk about snaps, Jelani Tavai, linebacker, has been very productive. Versus Miami, he recorded 14 blitzes, was among the top linebackers in Fantasy Pros IDP scoring in Week 8. When he's on the field, he makes plays happen. And that's kind of what you're hoping for In terms of other players for New England, you're always starting Kyle Duggar. I'm still on board the Jabril Peppers bandwagon just because he had a down week. I still think the big plays are there. The box snaps are practically identical between the two, so I don't think you can go wrong there. Let's check to see if Chris is good with his audio. Chris, are you good? Are you back?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I want to talk to you about Jahan Dotson's dynasty value here for a minute. We saw in recent weeks he's starting to get, looked at by Sam Howell. We're starting to see the performance there. Definitely has had a slow start to the season, but no Curtis Samuel this week. If he puts up another great game for fantasy managers, where do you assess his dynasty value as if you're trying to go seek him out in a trade to add to your roster? What would you potentially want to give up for Jahan Dotson?
If I'm going to try to acquire Jahan Dotson, which I'm not necessarily sure that I am, but if I am going out there to get him, then I would be willing to give up a second for him. So I think that the way that this Washington offense is shaping up is like when Curtis Samuel went down, we saw that, Dotson became like more involved, but a lot of people didn't notice that Jameson Crowder was out there and he was getting like a lot of work as well. I think that the slow start to the season has put a lot of people off. A lot of people have benched him, tried to get rid of him, trying to write him off. So I think you can buy low on him. I don't think his value is I don't think his actual production is going to be what his value is right now. I think so. If you are going to try get him, now is the time to. But yeah, for me, I would try to a second to see if I could to get him. But it really depends on how the owner is or how they feel. I mean, if he goes out and he has a big game today, which I'm thinking that he is going to have a big day today just by looking at his matchup. Bill Belichick, that he is a defensive chess player. So he's going to try to take out who he thinks their number one option is, which is more than likely going to be Terry McLaurin. So I expect with McLaurin, getting a lot of the defensive focus, Dotson is going to go off today. And you can go out there and sell him high if you're not a believer in him. And if you're trying to buy him, you can go out there and get him today. I think after today, he could be got. But it really just depends on how you feel about, Dotson. Me, personally, I think he is going to be in that range of low wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range. I really don't think he's ever going to be much more than that just until Washington becomes more consistent offensively. So the team is clearly going through changes and not exactly sure what's going to happen or how it's all going to shake out. And there's still a lot of people who don't believe in Sam Howell. There's people who don't like him as a person. But
what the hell is that? Come on, man.
It's a bad person, Jorge. That
was me.
It's Sam Howell. Good Lord. David, let's go to you real quick. Let's talk about running backs for this matchup. Who are you more confident in, Ramondre Stevenson or Brian Robinson this week?
Oh, this is gross. This is very, very gross. A gun in my head, I'm going Stevenson. I think he's going to get the lion's share. Unfortunately, I don't think Zeke is really, has a potential to take over there. But it's too. There's just not enough certainty for the amount of touches that Robinson's going to get. So I'd probably go Stevenson, but it's not by much.
Keith, let's take it from a DFS perspective. Going again, talking about Ramondre and Brian Robinson over on DK. With DK being a full PPR, does that change your mind, or does that differ your opinion from David's, given the fact that Ramondre has been utilized in the receiving game, or are you still pro Robinson given his efficiency, who actually has been utilized in the receiving game lately as well as they've been phasing out Antonio Gibson?
I mean, this is actually a game that I have a ton of plays from that I love. I think this is going to be the sneaky shootout that people are not talking about. It's going to be a lot of points scored. New England's defense has not been the same since their injuries. And then obviously Washington getting rid of 2 of the best pass rushers in the league when they were already one of the worst teams versus the pass is something to be said. But I do like Stevenson more if I was going to use one of those guys for DFS, again, because it's PPR and Kendrick Bourne's gone. But I do just want to talk about, this is seriously a treasure trove. I have no problem with anybody starting Sam Howell at QB this week. Actually 3 of Washington's pass catchers. I love Logan Thomas at his price. I don't have a problem with McLaurin. He's a little expensive. I'd rather go with like Nico Collins or somebody like that. But I think Dotson is a great play who, it's been pointed out, has a real chance to go off today. But on the New England side, Mac Jones is, other than Dak Prescott, my favorite play at QB this week. He's 4,900 on DK. And I don't know if people completely understand how bad Washington has been versus quarterbacks. This is the last 7 weeks. Hurts, 31 points. Tyrod Taylor, 21 points. Desmond Ridder, 22 points. He turned it over 3 times in that game. Justin Fields, 32 points. Jalen Hurts, 27 points. Josh Allen, 22 points. Russell Wilson, 30 points. And again, they had 2 of the best pass rushers in the league, and they struggled that bad against quarterbacks and wide receivers. You know what might hinder that a little bit? When you can't get pressure anymore. So I think Mac Jones has a chance to just go nuclear today. And what I really like about him is my favorite play of any player this week, and somebody who I've been screaming all week, if they're out there, go pick up Demario Douglas, who is already one of the best or in my opinion, the best wide receiver on this team. But because he's young and obviously Bourne was more established, he wasn't getting quite, the targets and snaps, but that's been changing. He's only 4K on DK. He saw 13 targets, 9 receptions the last 2 weeks. More importantly, with Bourne getting hurt, he led all New England receivers in snaps. And it's really shocking to see he's 19th among wide receivers in target rate. And that was before the Bourne injury. So now that Bourne's gone, he's going to get peppered with targets. And this is a Washington team. They're 31st versus wide receivers on DK. But it's worse than that. Versus number 1 receivers. Their last 6 games, they've given up 44 receptions. 5 of 6 games, the number 1 receiver has caught 8 or more passes. In that span, over 6 games, number 1 receivers are having 141 yards per game. Just number 1 receivers and 7 touchdowns. I think the Douglas Jones stack at 8,900 is a really good building block to build a cash game winning lineup this week, because then you can have Kamara and Barkley. And if you want to put Bijan or, Jonathan Taylor in your flex, and you can go with, again, you have Demario Douglas. I told you K. Otton's a play I really like. It's 3K at tight end. And there's a defense this week in the Giants that are 2,300 versus Aiden O'Connell on the Raiders. So it gives you so much flexibility and a great matchup that I think is going to be a high scoring affair. You're muted there, buddy. Jorge,
you're muted. Jorge, you're muted.
Rookie mistake there. Thank you very much, Keith. While a little peek behind the curtain here, while you were talking, I saw that the guest of the hour is arriving backstage in studio. And I think it's about time we bring him on. Let's see if we're good with any technical difficulties here. Preston Evans, how are you, sir? Can you hear? Nope, not yet. We're gonna get you that pie in the face, man. You're not avoiding it. It's coming. Let's carry on here. Let's go to the next matchup here. Let's drag this one out until we get Preston on screen here. Chicago at New Orleans, -8.5, 41. Out. Safety, Jaquan Brisker. Linebacker, Tremaine Edmonds. Justin Fields, he's basically out. I don't think the official designation has come out yet, but you can pretty much expect him to be out here. Tyler, talk about the Chicago Bears. What the hell's going on at running back? What are we doing at wide receiver? Just what are we doing in general with Chicago?
What are we doing? We're trying to avoid if we can. Running back is confusing to me. They've been leaning on Deontay Foreman the last couple of weeks. Roschon was back last week and still got out-touched by Deontay Foreman. He did, however, receive 4 targets, I believe, 3 receptions. He didn't produce a lot on them, but he is the pass catcher there. He's a better runner than Deontay Foreman, so if I'm taking a shot on a running back in Chicago this week, it's going to be Roschon Johnson. DJ Moore, I feel like you have to play him, but over the last 3 weeks since Justin Fields has been injured, he's the wide receiver 41. So not overly impressive. So if you are debating between him and someone else, don't think that DJ Moore is a wide receiver 1 right now with Justin Fields not playing. Cole Kmet, he went one game with 0 targets, and the next game he had 10. So 10 targets, 10 receptions, 79 yards. So Cole Kmet, if you have him on your squad, you're probably starting him. I would feel fine with starting him.
As fine as you can with any tight end not named Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews.
Exactly.
Okay, so Keith,
Laporta's been pretty good, to be fair. I mean, I think we got to throw Laporta in that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm sorry. That's very fair, Dave. Yep.
Yeah. Laporta's just on by.
So we'll get to the rest of this game in a second because I'm super impatient. Technical difficulties have been cleared up. And let's face it, folks, all of us here have been waiting for this. All of you have been watching across the various social media channels have been waiting for this. It's time. And most importantly, Chris Burns, you've been waiting for this. So let's welcome Preston Evans. Preston, how are you today, sir?
Not too good.
Why would you not be too good?
Let me tell you something. I in 07, I lost $600 to the Pats for that Super Bowl. Then in 2010, I lost $400 more to the Pats in that Super Bowl. And I would trade all those in to not have to take this pie.
Can I tell you what? In that 2010 Super Bowl, you said you lost $400.
I lost 4 then.
Was that the David Tyree catch, or was that which one was that?
No, that was the Manningham catch.
Yeah, the Manningham catch. Yeah, I remember that game. I won $1,300 on that Super Bowl.
Yes.
So
I had to come into the bathroom. I had to come into the spare bathroom to do this because my wife would have a fit.
Yeah,
Happy wife, happy life. You're a smart man, Preston.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's pie bet time. Before we get to the moment, which, by the way, Preston, you joined me in being the only members of the Fantasy and Frames crew to ever take a pie to the face. David Ibrahim, you were there. You saw me tease everybody with the full pie, but then take the 2 mini pies right to my.
Yeah. That was pretty hard. Mm-hmm.
That was hardcore. Yeah, well, I'm expecting the same effort from you there, Preston. Okay, so
I think there's more shame in actually having to go to the store and buy a pie, knowing that it's going in your face. You know.
Well, I went and got, because of the festive season, I went and got the sweet potato pie.
Oh, you're a brave man. That's probably one of the worst pies you could take.
Yeah, I had to keep it festive, and I wasn't going to even disrespect my wife's pie by having her make one just to throw in my face.
Good call. That's, again, another smart decision.
Preston's a genius, man. You know, mess with the women.
Fantasy football, life lessons. Preston knows it all. What can I say? Before we get to that, any last words, Chris, from you before Preston puts a pie in the face?
I just want to say, Preston, you are a good sport. I gave you a lot of hell last week. And had the Dolphins lost that game, then I'm pretty sure you would have enjoyed this a little more than I am right now. But you've been a good sport, so I appreciate you, and I can't wait to see this. And then, so next year, don't bet against us again, all right?
Well, here we go.
We're ready for you.
Here we go. After I take this pie, I got to get off.
Never trust our Patriots again, man. Come on.
Oh, I still love them. Here it is.
Can we do
Sweet
a
potato pie.
On the count of 3, can we do a countdown? All right. 1, 2, 3. Yeah!
What a good sport. What a good sport. I love it.
Yes. And he pushed the 5-10
The Dolphins, Miami Dolphins.
Bro needs a shower.
I'm a man of my word.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
All right, Chris, we doing it. We're doing it again next year, Chris.
Get some points next time, Preston, for goodness sakes.
Do you know the last
It's
time
not
the
a fair
Patriots
fight right now.
You know the last time the Patriots beat the Dolphins was 2020 when we had Cam Newton under center. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick was still the quarterback.
Yeah, we used to split a lot, but since Tom left.
I know.
Oh,
Bring him back.
But all right, you guys. I'll be listening on.
Preston,
Hope you guys enjoyed that. Hope everybody enjoyed that. I'm a man of my word. And next year, Chris, we're gonna do it again.
Bring it on.
Good sport. I love it.
All right, you guys.
All right. See you, Preston.
Y'all take care.
Oh my God. Wow.
Good stuff.
You want to talk about commitment? Not only did the pie go in the face, he pushed and
whacked
foiled
that.
the mold of his face. Like that was, oh my God, that was fantastic.
So we're doing real pies here? I was like going to put some whipped cream on a plate.
No. That's whipped cream in the face. I'm talking about a pie. When I did my pie bet there, Tyler, I had a banana cream pie. I had actual bananas. I had vanilla wafers. I had the actual filling, and then I decided I'm not wasting
Sounds
an entire
delicious.
Preston went up to me here. He actually took a huge pie. I just made tiny mini pies. So we got to step it up for our pie bet coming on Dynasty 365 this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on YouTube, X, and Facebook. Just to let you know, Tyler and I are in the Kings Classic, Dawson Division. We're taking on each other in the auction as well as the snake draft leagues. And if I win both my matchups, he takes 2 pies. If he wins both of his matchups, I take 2 pies. If we split, we're still taking pies. So either way, it's a pie bonanza. Yay, cleaning it up afterwards. I will be doing it in studio. Preston, again, smarter man, doing it in the restroom. Good for him. Chris, let me ask you, going back to you here. First of all, I know you're a Dolphins fan, so thank you very much for taking the time out of watching the game. Were you satisfied with that performance by Preston Evans?
So I was extremely satisfied. I mean, with that's like a top tier A+ effort that he gave right there. I mean, it's a sweet potato pie. Like he's like trying to suffocate himself with that pie. Like that's a thick viscosity.
I was close to calling 911.
Yeah, I was a little worried, So he did a great job. His performance was better than the Patriots, so I'll give him that. And
that's not very
next year,
difficult, right?
do it again.
Very nice, very nice, very nice. Are we going to keep you on here, or are you going to go watch the rest of the game, or what's your plan for the rest of the show?
Yeah, so I just got off work like 3.5 hours ago. So
sleep.
I'm gonna put the game on, but I'm probably going to sleep. So.
Okay.
But it's good chatting with you guys this morning, and I'll catch up with you a little bit later.
Appreciate your time. Thanks, Chris.
All right, guys.
Okay, so we got a question here on YouTube. Start 2 running backs, full PPR. Chuba Hubbard, Devin Singletary, Roshan Johnson. Keith, let's kick it up to you. What are you thinking?
I mean, Singletary is the definite start for me. The Texans are a good offense. I mean, they just are with Stroud, and he's going to get a lion's share, obviously, of both the rush attempts and targets. I would probably lean Hubbard because I think that's another game that just is going to turn into a sneaky shootout because both those defenses are really bad. Carolina is awful versus the run, and Indy's bad against everything. I mean, like I know on DK metrics, they're bottom third against tight ends, wide receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, you name it. It does scare me a little bit that obviously Sanders seems to be back and healthy, and even though Hubbard has looked like the better running back, they've kind of seemed to give him a slight edge in the games that they play together. But I would probably go, like I said, Singletary is a definite, and then I would lean Hubbard over Johnson.
Dave, you agree?
Yeah, Singletary, absolutely. I mean, he's obviously the one there, so he's going to get the lion's share of the carries. I just can't trust Roschon Johnson because you're relying on the Bears. And this is my guy, Zach. What's up, Zach? He's a Bears fan, so this is going to hurt, but you can't rely on the Bears, man. Like, they're going to be probably trailing. So best case scenario, you're getting like 8 or 10 carries, and I just don't think he's going to do much with it. If it's me, I'm going Singletary and Hubbard.
And I hate it for him as a Bears fan because I was shocked when they, won those 2 games with Fields, and actually, like, all of a sudden, I was like, oh, wait a minute, are the Bears frisky? And then he gets hurt, and I'm still a really big believer in Fields. And I think if they can build a team around him, there's better days to come for Chicago Bears fans.
Head up high, Zach. Head up high.
Gators joining us from on the road. That was awesome, he says. He literally pulled over on the side of the road. He's like, oh, I'm watching this.
Tell Gator, we can do a pie deal next year for the Georgia-Florida game if you'd like.
Oh, you want to talk about shots fired? It doesn't get better than that.
Or you can tell Hollywood that if he wants to do it for the upcoming Georgia-Tennessee game. I'm good with that, too.
Pie sales in America are about to go through the roof, guys. So many pie bets.
Keith, I've missed you. We got to have you back more. Let's carry on here with the other side for New Orleans, and then we'll get to a couple DFS plays. Tyler, why don't you keep us going with this game and talk about the Saints?
All right. Derek Carr, I have as currently my QB 12 this week. Ooh. So I guess he is a back-end QB 1 at that ranking. Other than that, I mean, he's been fine. Kamara is currently my RB1 on the week. I mean, his target volume is absolutely bonkers. So I think I saw a stat last week that said Alvin Kamara is it Kamara or Kamara? I can never remember.
I always say Kamara. Am I wrong?
I say Kamara, so it's probably Kamara.
Kamara was actually leading all running backs in the NFL with targets last week, and he didn't play for the first 3 weeks of the season, and he was number 1 in targets.
Tyler, he's averaging 12.36 points per game just as a receiver in PPR leagues. That's ridiculous.
So Alvin Kamara is my RB1 right now. You can probably start all 3 Saints receivers. Rashid Shaheed is a boom candidate. I mean, he's got that game-breaking ability to just get behind the entire defense. Olave has been consistent. He's probably due for a big game. We haven't seen one since week 3. And Michael Thomas has just been the definition of consistency. He's scoring 8, 9, 10 points every week. He's a perfect flex 1 or flex 2. Just put him in there and don't think about it. So I would feel good with all of them. Juwan Johnson is playing this week. So that actually kind of wrecks their tight end position for me. Without Juwan Johnson, I am willing to start Taysom Hill. With Juwan Johnson, his targets have it drops to the floor. I mean, I think he had 2 targets last week. So I'm not really willing to start either of their tight ends, but I'll fire up all 3 of their receivers. Kamara's the RB1, and Derek Carr is likely a must start on some teams with the bleak QB landscape that we've already discussed.
Keith, let me ask you a wide receiver question here for DFS purposes. We go back to week 5, Chris Olave's targets 5, 10, 15, 9, highs and lows, literally. We go to Michael Thomas, 7, 8, 7, 7. For value, does it make sense to go with the consistency and pay less for Michael Thomas, or are you in this matchup just saying, screw it, I'm paying up full cost for Olave?
I mean, to be honest, like in a matchup like this where I think the Saints are going to be ahead, if you're going to go with a receiver, go even further down and go with Rashif. He's obviously somebody that he's not going to even, see anywhere near the targets that either Thomas or Olave will. but he shows time and again that at any point he could turn 3-4 targets into a 20-point game where he has over 100 yards and a touchdown. But I mean, for DFS, Kamara and cash game lineups, like this is probably the last week that you can justify it without even blinking. Because again, you want to always get 3 times whatever their price is. And if they're not getting that, it gets harder and harder with each player in your lineup that doesn't do that. To cash, he's 8,100. So now he's at the point where he needs 24.3 points, which, I mean, luckily he's averaging 24.57 points since he's came back. So we're still in that range where it's like, yeah, I got to do it. I mean, just to show how great he's been on DK, he's averaging over the last 3 games over 5 points more than the second highest scoring running back in DFS. And it's got that 12.36 points per game as a receiver to thank for it. And then what I really love is 17 carries or more in 4 straight games. I mean, he's also getting, the ground stuff, which the Bears' run defense is really bad. It is why, though, Taysom Hill's the other guy from this game that Tyler's, points great, and it's why I'm not using him in cash game lineups. But in bigger entry tournaments, I love Hill's upside because I think they're not going to stop throwing to him altogether because I believe they realized when Johnson was out, hey, this guy actually can be a receiver. We know he could throw a pass at any point. And anytime you have a matchup versus a bad run defense, I always like the possibility of Taysom Hill because, again, at the tight end position, when Kelsey – you can't play Kelsey this week, right, because he was in the 9 o'clock game. I would argue that he has the highest ceiling of any tight end this week in DK because Taysom Hill could end up, with 100 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, or they could just decide to give him the ball on the 1 yard line twice like they did last week when it stole Kamara from having bigger games. So I think there is enough upside at Hill at 4,700 to still justify him in bigger events, but I would go to somebody like Cade Otton or Logan Thomas if it was a cash game one.
David, I got an ugly start and sit question for you, and I want you to tell the viewers why you're choosing. Would you roll Derek Carr or Jordan Love this week?
Derek Carr. Jordan Love is so inconsistent, it's not even funny. I don't believe in that Packers offense. There's really no one that's a major threat. In New Orleans, you've got, as we discussed, some absolute studs. You've got Olave, you got Michael Thomas, you got, Rashid. He's, I guess, even their third receiver, and still enough that we're talking about him as fantasy relevant. And the obvious one of Alvin Kamara. Taysom Hill still rolls as a tight end every now and then. He's a pocket QB. I absolutely love Derek Carr. If anything, I'd pick him over a lot more QBs, rather than
his arm
Jordan
seems
Love.
to be getting healthy too. And
Absolutely.
It was a big reason I was really high on Olave and Carr coming into this season was the stat that last year Devontae Adams had more touchdown receptions of 40+ yards with Carr in one season than he did his entire time with Aaron Rodgers. And unfortunately for people like me that invested in them, his arm got hurt, and he's had to do a lot of, dink and dunk and underneath stuff. But as his arm continues to get better, which you can see because he's starting to take more deep shots, what team has more explosive down the field players than the New Orleans Saints? And as a Falcons fan, it makes me sick, but I think they're going to be very good come the end of the season and actually a team that could compete in the NFC to win the NFC title.
Dave, let's stick with you. Let's answer this question. Bench one, please, in a standard league, non-PPR, Joe Mixon, Austin Eckler, Breece Hall, or James Cook?
I'm going to unfortunately have to go with my guy, James Cook, even though I got a lot of stock in him. It's just way too unreliable. Latavius Murray gets a lot of the goal line carries, and their running back one, Josh Allen, steals a lot of the 2 to 3 yard work. So you're relying on him just having a big catch and taking it to the house, or a big run taking it to the house. So the other guys, are going to get the opportunity. They're more talented, unfortunately. But if I'm benching one, it's got to be Cook.
Great draft, by the way, Nathan. Holy smokes.
Yeah, I know. That's wild. Embarrassment of riches right there.
Going with the IDP side of the ball, Chicago. Let's talk about Chicago for a bit. We talked about it a little bit earlier, the acquisition of Montez Sweat for a second round pick, excuse me. My thoughts on Montez Sweat are this. It's easy, and I say that, because here I am sitting in my comfy office saying it's easy to do this, but for, more often than not, getting one-on-one matchups against offensive linemen tends to be easier for edge rushers when you have somebody on the other side, a la like the caliber of Chase Young, to free up the double teams, to be able to beat the one-on-ones and get to the quarterback. And when you have a stud defensive line, there's a reason, all across the line, defensive tackle, defensive end, you name it, you're in a better opportunity to make plays. He does not have that in Chicago. So I'm anticipating if he does play this week, even in a limited fashion, those double teams to take effect. And if that is the case, on the other side, Yannick Ngakoue, former Maryland Terrapin, and Jaguar and Colt and Raider, insert whatever team, what he does do wherever he goes is he gets sacks. So while I may not say start Yannick Ngakoue in your IDP leagues, if you are on, for example, DK Sportsbook and you're looking at tackle props, and depending how early you get to it this morning, some of these players, you get sacks for a 0.25 sack, whatever the hell that means. The point is, if he gets a full sack, you win your prop for the day. I'm not joking. If Hollywood were here, he would tell you get in on those early props as early as you can. The later in the week you get, as well as early Sunday mornings for IDP purposes. Yannick Ngakoue getting you a sack is not outside the realm of possibility. You look at the linebacking situation, Tremaine Edmonds out. TJ Edwards should still get volume, but Jack Sanborn, people's IDP darling last year, who just came on mid-season and just was playing sideline to sideline, plus get in coverage, making tackles in coverage, as well as helping out against the run, should see tons of work. Jaquan Brisker is out. I don't really trust anybody else in the defensive back. So, it really comes down to Sanborn and Edwards. And for a prop bet, Yannick Ngakoue for a sack, given the pressure that Montez Sweat could face if he does, in fact, start, even if it is in a limited fashion. Going back to Nathan here, we have, thank you. I was trying to decide between James Cook and Joe Mixon. Any news on Mixon's chest injury? Would it impact his play today? I'm going to say no to both. I do not know any news on Joe Mixon.
No, I was not aware there was any issue with the chest. Is that common knowledge? Or?
So I got one Deepak Shona. I'm not sure the pronunciation, but he is a Twitter doctor. So his analysis was Bengals Joe Mixon. Data projects 85% chance of playing with a 10% performance dip. So I take that as he's going to play. The Bengals don't have any other real options at the running back position. So I would be sitting James Cook. That my answer, I would agree there, is sit James Cook, play Joe Mixon.
All right.
And we're reaching the 1 year anniversary of him, getting to the point where everybody who had Joe Mixon benched him, and then he went out and scored 55 points versus the Detroit Lions. So, and I was one of those people that in one of the two leagues I had him last year, had him on my bench when he scored 55. So,
I've never done it, taken the time to do it, but I've wanted to go and look at Joe Mixon's career and pick out those 6 games where he scored 40 plus and see what percentage of his fantasy production were.
Joe Matz did something like that 2 years ago, because it was same deal for his points per game. He was if you look at it, it's always from 3-4 games. He's, kind of in the middle of the pack for points per game. But if you take away just one of those games, he drops so far down. It's just the big thing, though, is the usage. And the Bills, too, are not good against the run. The teams that have been able to actually, run and consistently run on the Bills, because it's hard to get up on them, they've done a really good job. Earlier in the season, they were averaging almost 6 yards per carry through 5-6 games. Opposing running backs were versus the Bills.
Going back to this matchup with the Saints on the IDP side of the ball, Carl Granderson must start every week. Cameron Jordan just has not been there. You're seeing the decline, and he has his boomer bust weeks, but it is for consistency. Carl Granderson, Demario Davis, Pete Werner. Those are my confident plays there for the New Orleans Saints. Before we get to our next game, just remember, if you're liking what you're seeing today, if you liked what you've seen every Sunday on the Fantasy and Frames pregame show, wherever you're watching, particularly if you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button so you can get notified whenever we drop content here at Fantasy and Frames. Follow us everywhere on social media. We're really starting to make our presence known over on TikTok, and we thank the hundreds of people who check out our video content when we do post. And again, head over to fantasyandframes.com, read our articles, starts and sits, waivers, flex plays of the week, you name it, we got it. So just remember to help support all the hardworking people here. And with that, let's get into our next matchup. Seattle at Baltimore, -6.5, 44 out. Nobody has been declared out as of 8 o'clock this morning. Let's start with DFS this time. Keith, who do you like in this matchup?
I'm sorry, which game did you say, Jorge? I was being a dick and was reading my phone.
Seattle at Baltimore.
Seattle, Baltimore. You know, for DFS in this game, it's almost all like, you know, higher entries than cash games that I would look at plays. You know, I think Lamar's kind of due for a monster game. Last week and week one have really been the only two games this season that he hasn't been a top 3 quarterback on DK for the week. And Zay Flowers is somebody I really like, again, in bigger contests. It's kind of shocking he has not had that breakout game because he consistently targets, he consistently catches receptions. You know, the offense is really good. It just hasn't happened yet, and I think it is coming. On the Seattle side, I still think this Baltimore defense is really good. So I would just be kind of concerned about a lot of their plays. And Seattle, there's no team that frustrates me more. Like Kenneth Walker is the one guy in like fantasy leagues I would feel comfortable playing every week. But even DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, it's like week to week, you don't ever know which one is going to go off. And the next thing you know, Bobo goes off, and then Jackson Smith goes off. And it's just like, can I just figure out who's going to score on Seattle, please? So I typically try to stay away from them in DFS, but this is, again, there's really only a handful of games that I'm loading up in cash games. I just think that they're really good matchups, and they're definitely going to be high scoring affairs. This is one that it's kind of, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 14-17, you know, slugfest, and it wouldn't shock me if it's, you know, 30-27 barn burner.
Every time you say DK, I keep thinking Donkey Kong.
Well, speaking of DK, David, let's go to you. You know, he missed week 7. Before that, week 6, 9 targets. Week 8, 14 targets. Tyler Lockett, the past 3 weeks, 8, 5, and 9. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba, 5, 7, 4. Yet the last 2 games, he scored a touchdown. I mean, Keith, you said it perfectly. You know, just the inconsistencies. You don't know what you're going to get. You know, if you know, David, going back to you, if you had to pick one this week, Tyler Lockett or JSN, is it just because of the target share? You know, and the consistency with Tyler Lockett over the years, you're rolling with him, or can you make a case for JSN versus Baltimore?
Tyler Lockett is one of the best route runners in the NFL. I think he's very underrated. He can run the deep ball. He can do the crossing route. I mean, he's a very, very good wide receiver, and I'm always playing him just because he has that potential to go for 150 yards and 4 touchdowns. You know, he's going to get the target share. So for me, you know, it's a numbers game. You know, that's what fantasy is. You know, you've got to go the targets, the opportunity. I'm going with Tyler Lockett. You know, you really with in Jigba, that's his name. You're relying on a massive deep ball that he just takes to the house, and I just don't like that.
Let's keep it with you and answer this question here. Flex, PPR, Jahan Dotson, Ramondre Stevenson, or Jacoby Myers this week?
Ooh, this is tough. I'm kind of excited about Aiden O'Connell. I want to see what he does with Myers. I mean, he's been pretty good, to be honest. So if you're looking for safety, I'm going with Myers. If you need upside, I'm going Dotson. Stevenson is just not reliable. The Patriots are not reliable, I should say, anyway. But yeah, Myers for safety and Dotson for upside.
Nice. Okay, let's get into some of the IDP for this matchup. Obviously, Bobby Wagner, Jordan Brooks, you're starting. Jamal Adams, since coming back from injury, has been playing lights out. You know, the box snap percentages are there. Julian Love's fantasy value has basically disappeared. those are the players. Boye Mafe. When we talk about Boye Mafe, he in recent weeks, defensive lineman / edge rusher for the for the Seattle Seahawks. He's the pressures have been there. And the tackle totals for the floor that you want out of a defensive lineman just has been there. So just a consistent player. On Baltimore side, obviously Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen. I went on a rant 2 weeks ago about how you just can't trust any defensive back for fantasy purposes from the Baltimore Ravens. And then versus Arizona last week, Kyle Hamilton decided to put up 20-something points for fantasy using Fantasy Pros IDP scoring, played a lot of box snaps. Insert cornerback name that nobody pays attention to from week to week was in the top 12 of IDP scoring last week. Geno Stone, defensive back 60. So I got that one right. Again, Baltimore, if I had to pick a defensive back, it'd be Kyle Hamilton. A player that you may not be aware of, though, and I'm going to butcher his name as I scroll up to find the right pronunciation here. It is Justin Madubuike. Look here. Madubuike, thank you. Defensive tackle.
Gotcha.
Now, normally I would say, save your defensive tackles for IDP for leagues in which you have a specific defensive tackle spot. I don't think you have to do that with this guy. The past 3 weeks, he's been top 15 Fantasy Pros IDP scoring. We go back to last week. His win rate versus 101 blocks was 30.4%. Pressure rate, 21.7%. That was highest amongst all defensive interior linemen, and that was higher than any other edge rusher, defensive end, or outside linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens. Just been playing lights out. He's putting the pressure on. He's winning his blocking assignments. He's getting sacks. He's getting you fantasy points. I think you can slot him into a defensive lineman only spot and feel pretty comfortable just because of the consistency he's been showing. And it's really that win rate and pressure rate that really tell me the opportunity is there. So definitely like that upside there. And with that, we're going to get to our segment that we look to do every week. Courtney Burrows at Love Tractor 3 LUV has been killing it with her tailgating and frame segments, where she covers awesome recipes to try that you can start now or start, at 12 o'clock, leading up to kickoff, whether it's a recipe or a cocktail recipe. She's killing it. And she has another awesome recipe for you all today. So stay tuned and watch that. And then we'll get back to all of our game coverage and start into questions.
I love playing two-hand touch, eating way too much.
Hey guys, it's Courtney here, and this is Tailgating in Frames. You can find me on Twitter at LoveTractor3, but more importantly, you can find me every Sunday right here with the gang at Fantasy in Frames. So, week 9, where are you at on your fantasy teams, guys? Whew, can we talk about Kirk Cousins for a moment? Now, I'm not a Vikings fan, but my husband is, and I love that guy. I think he's actually a great on and off the field quarterback, and I just really always root for him, and I'm so saddened by what happened to him. These injuries this year have just really sucked, haven't they? I mean, I know that's par for the course, but man, it has sucked. So this weekend, we're going to see BYU rookie Jaron Hall face one of my favorite backup quarterbacks in Heineke, who is now taking over for Desmond Ridder and the Falcons. And it's going to be a fun game to watch, right? Heineke versus Jaron Hall, because they're not going to start Dobbs yet because he hasn't learned the playbooks. But that's not the game I'm here to talk about today. That game would be the Bills at the Bengals. Now, I know this is going to be an emotional game for the Bills, right? Because we saw what happened last season when the Bills and the Bengals played, right? Damar Hamlin, right? Like, it was huge. We all watched it unfold on TV, and it brought all of us to our knees. So I know it is going to be an emotional game, but does that give them the edge? The Bills have been kind of shaky the last couple of games, right? Josh Allen's dealing with a shoulder injury, and Joe Burrow's back, baby. Remember when I talked about him in the beginning of the season, how disappointed I was? He must have heard me. He must be watching our show. But, they tore the 49ers apart last week. 31 points on that 49ers defense. Man, they're looking good. They're looking sharp. So Are we looking at the AFC Championship preview this weekend? Tonight? Are we looking at it? Who's going to pop off, y'all? Who is it going to be? What offense is going to pop more against these injury-riddled defenses? What quarterback is going to pop more? Is it going to be Joe Burrow or Josh Allen? Is it going to be Stephon Diggs that pops? Is it going to be Jamar Chase that pops? Who's it going to be? And wait a minute. Why am I talking about popping? Is it because we're going to make some pizza poppers today in the air fryer? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. You know me all too well. So let's get started. First and foremost, what I want you to do is get your ingredients. We are going to have mozzarella cheese. We are going to have cream cheese. We are going to have bell peppers. We are also going to have pepperoni. Or guys, choose what you want. You can have pepperoni. You can have bacon. You can have sausage crumbles. You can have shredded chicken. Really, whatever you want. 1, 2, 3. Okay, guys, so you got all your ingredients together, right? So if you want to use little peppers, absolutely you can. But if you want to make it more of a meal and not an appetizer, then you could use the big ones or just use the big ones anyway. It holds a lot more, right? So what you're going to do is have that cream cheese soften. You really want to soften it up for at least 30 minutes out of the refrigerator before you get going because it just makes it easier to deal with. Mozzarella, I'd throw at least a good half a cup in there. And then you want your pepperoni. I'm choosing to use pepperoni. But again, like I'm saying, if you want to do like a whole array of these, you could do pepperoni, you could do the shredded chicken, you could do the crumbles, Italian sausage crumbles, whatever you want. I always use garlic powder, and because it's pizza, we definitely need that in there. And then like some dried oregano or some fresh or dried basil, as well as some salt. And then you're just going to mix it up. Just going to kind of mix it up. Yeah, just mix it up. As you can see, you really need to get it soft. And mine is not quite that soft yet, but that is okay. Because it is still gonna melt in the air fryer and be delicious. All right, so then you're gonna pop it right in here. Kind of smooth it out in there. We're gonna do both of them. We're gonna pop them into the air fryer. Pop them into the air fryer at 375 degrees at about 6 minutes. And I'll tell you, if you're using your oven, put it at 400 and put those babies on parchment paper so that they don't burn on the bottom. All right, guys. So I had them in the air fryer. 6 minutes was perfect. It is golden brown and it looks delicious. Look at that. Now, I have it paired with a marinara sauce, like a little warm marinara sauce, but you don't have to do this. This is going to be perfectly delicious even without the sauce. Let's go ahead and try it. Oh, it is so creamy. It is so good. Oh my gosh. These are going to be a hit. Just like I think Dalton Kincaid's going to be a hit tonight. The Bengals give up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. And last week, he came out on top. He looked great. He looks like the rookie tight end that we all knew he was going to be, right? That star. So I expect Dalton Kincaid to get a touchdown, to get whatever his over-under is on his yardage. I expect it to go over. This is, again, 48.5 on the over-under. I expect it to go over. I expect it to go over. I do expect it to be a shootout. Josh Allen practice, he's playing. It is going to be a fun game. And of course I'm playing Kincaid. Of course I'm playing Stephon Diggs. If I have Gabe Davis, I like him as a flex. I also, on the other side, flip side, of course I'm playing Jamar Chase. Of course I'm playing T. Higgins. You're playing your stars. There's nobody in this game that I would say sit. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a fun game. So make yourself some of these delicious pizza poppers. Relax on the couch with your favorite beverage and watch the Bengals pop off against the Bills. 31-27 in favor of the Bengals. Remember, guys, I'm Courtney. This is Tailgating in Frames. And you can find me on Love Tractor 3 on Twitter, but more importantly, right here with the gang at Fantasy in Frames. Who dat? And let me get back to eating.
Okay, so a couple things. One, those poppers look pretty delicious. I'm really jealous of anybody who's making that right now. So thank you very much, Courtney. Thing number two, one of my favorite people just jumped in behind the studio, and we are super excited to have her. If you've ever been to the Fantasy Football Expo, if you've ever been to the Fantasy Football Expo, nobody represents fantasy and frames better than Miss Carrie Markham.
Hey, y'all. Morning. Just had to jump on real fast because what a play from Kansas City. You guys catch that?
Oh, I caught it. I've got it on over here.
I kept asking, was that a pick six? And they said, no, it's a fumble six. I didn't know there was a difference, but I learned something today. Look at that.
I've never heard that expression before, a fumble six.
I haven't either. That's what I asked.
It's okay.
Nate's over there watching TV. I had to jump on. I was like, my guys are on. I got to say hi. My team is doing good in Germany. Look at us.
Very nice.
There you go.
Yep.
So
I got you all stuttered. Carrie's on. We don't even know what to say.
I know what to say. I am extremely jealous of you and Nate going to see Metallica the other day.
I know.
I was talking to Nate last night, and apparently you all have
Pantera, was it?
I mean, that's what I was there for, was the Pantera aspect. But, that was just the kicker, was having Metallica there as well.
I guess you can see Metallica. It's okay. Yeah. Nate tells me you all have an extra ticket tonight. So I told him.
Are you flying in real fast?
Yeah. My plane will be there at 6. And I can't wait to go see you guys and go rock Metallica. So yeah, definitely.
7 Finger Punch Down. I say that wrong. 7. What is it? They're opening.
5 Finger Death Punch.
There you go. You got it.
There's no way I was.
That's got it. Look at Tyler for the win. Yeah. See, that's why I went to Pantera instead, because I knew every single Pantera song they sang, and they rocked it. And let's be honest. We had Phil there barefoot as always. We had Zach there from Ozzy Osbourne just the guitar, and then Charlie from Anthrax was on the drums. So I mean, what a lineup for Pantera. I said Zach Wilde. He's got to stay in the background.
So Carrie, I have a request for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
So every year we try to, during the holiday season, once the fantasy football season is wrapped up, do a little holiday live stream broadcasting situation. And if you remember, a couple years ago, we had quite a spirited one that went into the early morning hours. And I'm just wondering whether or not you will be joining us this year along with Nate, because it wouldn't be a holiday party here at Fantasy without you.
I mean, I would love to join. Absolutely. I will keep the fireball to a minimum this time, and we will not let Nate pass out on camera.
Or
just a quick recap of what happened the last time we did this.
Don't forget, Todd also walked into a window, so that was also. I think that was.
I got him to take his shirt off too. Yes, that was great. Yeah, Hollywood with the sleeves. By the end of the night, he was wearing a tank top.
See, and that's what makes me a little bit frustrated with Hollywood today, because
where is he?
He's not here, not joining us, and I know that you two are fans of each other. And had he been here, he would have loved to see you and talk shop with you. Let me ask you a question, and try to take your bias out of this, even though I know that you're not going to be able to. The Kansas City Chiefs, are they your favorite team in the AFC this year? Or is there anybody that you've watched or you've heard of that you think could kind of upset them this year?
Fly, Eagles, fly. I mean, the other team would be the Eagles. I mean, their record, they're playing. I like them. Okay. I hate. Kansas City Eagles. I had Cousins going for a while, but now he's out, so that sucks.
Don't discount the Chargers, man. I know they got a losing record right now, but they have the recipe for a Super Bowl win.
I love the Chargers. That's who we're actually going to go see in January. We're going to go to
I'm gonna come up and see you guys. You guys are
Good.
in LA,
Yeah, good. So we'll be there. Perfect. All right. Well, I have to get going to brunch, so I just wanted to jump on. I know. I'm so popular. I got to go.
That's all. Well, thank you very much for stopping by, Carrie. We love you.
Okay. I love you guys. Hi.
Congrats on the win for the Chiefs.
Yeah. Thanks. And tell your wife hi. I love her too. And Melissa. Okay. Bye, you guys.
Will do. That was awesome.
Love Carrie. She's awesome.
Had she stayed on a little bit longer, I would have gone into some Taylor Swift Kansas City Chiefs questions. But fortunately, I can ask those questions to somebody who's hopping on stage now. Welcome to the show, Nate. How's it going, man?
Muted.
He knows.
No, Carrie turned the mic off. No,
So
on switch on this thing.
I haven't seen anything from the game. I saw a Rashee Rice alert. What am I missing in this game with the Dolphins?
Defense stifling for the Chiefs. They're getting pressure on Tua. Secondary's playing well. Waddle got hurt initially, but he's back. Tyreek's getting bracketed, and just the big turnover, the fumble recovery for the touchdown, and then the Chiefs have, really they've taken they've had terrible field position, and so they've done really well. They've had 2 or 3 starts within on their own 20 or 10. So not what I expected. Whenever Preston wants to jump on and talk, no, Chris is the Dolphins fan, right?
Well, this is kind of my bad.
Yeah.
I know you talked to me about texting you when stuff was going down.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of already happened, and
That's
I forgot. But I'm going to make clips of it and put it on social media because it is okay. Well, I don't want to spoil it.
No, don't spoil it. Yeah, let's talk football, and I'll watch it in a minute.
There we go. So we're getting to our next game here. It's first of the 4:00 games. Indianapolis at Carolina. No Zaire Franklin is doubtful. I don't know yet if he's been declared out. I haven't seen a report yet. Von Bell also doubtful. We've had Keith Fleming joining us for most of the morning. But let's talk about IDP since we have you here. EJ Speed, what are your thoughts on him as a LB2 or LB3 this week for fantasy managers? If Zaire Franklin does not play, or does he catapult into maybe LB2, high LB2 value?
It's probably still LB3 value, realistically. Shaq Leonard is borderline LB1 with, obviously the concerns for just overall health. You never want to plan something happening, but it is Shaq Leonard. But no, I like EJ Speed. I think that he should see 80% of the snaps. Will probably finish middle of the, I think middle of that LB3 with the upside of an LB2. The matchup isn't ideal for linebackers, but not terrible. I mean, I know that's vague analysis, but at the end of the day, I have to look at the offense on the other side of the ball and think, how much are they going to offer in the way of tackle upside?
No, that makes sense. For defensive back, Julian Blackman's been pretty consistent all year. You and I, the past 2 weeks, have mentioned the name Kenny Moore. One week I was pretty high on him, given his tackle production and fantasy production. And then last week happened, and now it's like, back to cornerbacks being so unpredictable. Is that kind of what we're feeling going into this matchup? One, two, if you were in a cornerback specific league, would you still throw out Kenny Moore, or do you think there'd be better, higher upside options than him?
No, I think Kenny Moore's still real solid play. Don't get me wrong. It's the fact that New Orleans will, I think they'll attack the slot corner quite a bit. But then again, here's the one thing with the Indianapolis defense. Juju Brents is out, and Alabama product Tony Brown. I don't know if he's a good product or not, but he's a product. And last week he had allowed 158.3 NFL rating. So 7 catches, 187, and a touchdown. Something tells me New Orleans is going to, stretch the field and be able to take advantage of this Indianapolis defense. But Blackman should be up in the box. Well, we know we're going to see Alvin Kamara catch. I don't know. What's the over-under now? 20 catches in a game for that man? It's been ridiculous.
It's Carolina versus Indy this week.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, last week was New Orleans. I'm sorry. I apologize. Pulled up the wrong sheet.
So what happens when the Chiefs play in the morning is Nate's got his mind on other things.
Completely. And yet the whole time I knew I was going to say, I was like, man, I love Adam Thielen in this matchup. I'm starting him everywhere. And for that singular matchup there. But that's why Kenny Moore is actually a good play too, because the slot, I would say, projects to be a heavily involved area.
Going back to some DFS here, Keith, who do you like in this matchup? Colts and the Panthers.
Man, who don't I like? I do. I love both running backs on DraftKings. Taylor is obviously the one I like more. He's 6,400. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but his usage just continues to ramp up both in snap share, route participation. He's seen 7 red zone touches in the last 2 weeks. He's due for a big game in Carolina. 130 yards or more in every game. It's unbelievable. They've given up 14 rushing touchdowns in 7 games. I just find it hard to believe that Taylor doesn't kind of have that monster breakout game that we've been looking for. And then on the other side, I really do like Thielen. I think he's actually a little bit of a discount at 7,500 this week on DraftKings because, A.J. Brown's got a really tough matchup, obviously, versus the Cowboys, Cooper Kupp, who, again, if you have him in a fantasy league, you're definitely playing him. But I don't know if I trust him for, DK purposes this week with the quarterback situation. And, Dak sometimes has his issues versus the Eagles. So all those receivers are more expensive with CeeDee Lamb. And I think Thielen is a great play. Same thing on that side. Jonathan Mingo, who is 3,500 this week. Really starting to see usage out of him. They're making him more and more involved. And Bryce is playing better. Bryce, the first 3 games, it was really rough. Since then, 5 passing touchdowns, averaging almost 15 points per game. You can talk me into a ton of players in this game, but the ones that I like the most are the 2 running backs for the Colts and then the pass catchers on the other side for the Panthers.
Yeah, Keith, I actually put together a number of teams where I have Bryce Young, Thielen, and Mingo as one, and then that opens up so much room for the other side. I think the one where I have those 3, I have the ability to put Devontae, AJ Brown, and I think Kyle Pitts, which not love, but and without London, it just, if Carolina can score enough, which obviously everybody's a little, we're always concerned because it's Carolina, but I do love that.
They've been better the last 3 weeks. In fairness, they're scoring now. And
but what's he had one? Was he had more than 1 passing touchdown in that game yet?
Yeah.
If you do
it's 1 game, but yeah, he has had the multi-touchdown game. You're talking about Young,
Bryce
right?
Young, yes.
Yeah.
You do redo the draft right now. Are you taking CJ Stroud over Bryce Young?
Yes. CJ Stroud for me has basically eliminated any quarterback ever saying that you have to have a good offensive line to be able to do well in the NFL because this is a rookie quarterback behind a shredded offensive line. And credit needs to be given to the Texans coaching staff, that offensive line. They've been, pretty solid. But if you just took the offensive lines in the NFL starting week 1, the Texans from a talent perspective would have been near the bottom. And yet Stroud doesn't get sacked. He doesn't turn the ball over. Sure. And I think this is a good matchup this week too for them because, there's not a lot of pressure, I don't think, coming this week. And Collins has been so good at home, but I do think they're going to have to throw more because there's going to be some scoring in this game. That's been the deal with why Stroud's had a couple of down weeks is they've been able to control the game and run it a lot. And I think without Damian Pierce in a game that, both sides are going to score, you see that kind of change this week.
David, let's go to you. Question here from Chris B. Superflex 6-point passing touchdown. Quarterbacks have been rough. Zach Wilson, Bryce Young, Brett Rippon. Who you going with?
Firstly, Jorge, what's your favorite number? Out of curiosity. Is it 17?
The jersey's behind you, pro.
Oh, so
I'm waiting for you to get a Phillip Rivers jersey next. I don't know.
Well, it's that or Jalen Waddle or Josh Allen. I don't know. I don't know what to go with next, to be honest with you.
Just make sure it's only 17. You just have a mural of just 17.
Distracting you, the 54 and the 10. Is that throwing you off?
Yeah, that's putting me off. Actually, can you just get rid of them, please?
I will do something about that. Yes.
Look, out of those ones, it's Zach Wilson for me. The Chargers defense can get exposed. They're DB, so he does have a decent deep ball. I know Zach Wilson's not the best quarterback, but if you're talking about Bryce Young and Brett Rippon, it's got to be Zach Wilson.
Nice. Thank you very much. Let's stick here. IDP side of the ball for Carolina. Really quickly, Nate. Who are we liking? Von Bell is out. Do we think, what are we thinking at the defensive back position as far as a starter here? Are we, is Jeremy Cheney somebody we're thinking about, or
no? I mean, he's on the IR, so no.
Well,
but
that would be fine.
Yeah. Xavier Woods returned this past week and immediately had 8 tackles. When he's played near the line, much more than I had expected going into the season. And so I actually have Xavier Woods as one of my kind of like deep starts for someone that's pretty buried on the defensive back rankings. And so do I love it? No. But at the same time, I think that there's definitely some upside. Minshew has the ability to, be a chucker. And so I think there's a path to some splash plays, but yeah, I'd say warm on Xavier Woods. As far as linebacker, I mean, Frankie Louvu is just a beast. The one good thing that we saw this past week, if I think it's a good thing, is he played more in interior linebacker instead of on the edge, which does take away some of his pass rush like upside, supposedly, but he's still such a good blitzer from the interior line too, that I think that we'll get that double-digit tackle upside plus the potential splash plays for Louvu there. And then the one name on the defensive line we have to pay attention to is Brian Burns hasn't exactly had the best of starts to his season. I don't know what the product is exactly, but he's drawn a little bit of it's a sack or bust type mentality for him, because he's had, since week 1, he hasn't had more than 3 tackles and 4 tackles, I guess, is his high. So definitely not the tackle upside that we were hoping for, but it's still Brian Burns.
Nice. Tyler, why don't you take it away?
All right. So moving on to the Giants at the Raiders. Over under is 37.5. Raiders are favored by 1.5 points. Do the Raiders have any business being favored in any game right now, Keith?
No. They do not. All
right, so can you hit the
That's
Giants
a slap in the face of the Giants, right? That is such a slap in the face. The organization is absolutely dismantled this week. And here are the Giants like, you're probably going to lose, guys.
How about the Giants? They're 2,300 on DraftKings. Normally I mix up my defenses and DK lineups, and I start at 2,900 and below, and I usually have 1 or 2 that I'll use in several different lineups. This week, it's been the Giants are the cheapest defense on there facing the Raiders, who you just talked about how bad the Chargers were, right? Aiden O'Connell scored 14 points versus the Chargers in his only other start this season. So the Giants have given up a combined, I think it's like 27 points the last 3 weeks, and they played Buffalo. Washington has been one of the best offenses in football, and granted the Jets, but it's crazy. So they're a smash play for me this week.
So is there anything to be said? Now, I don't have much data or any data to back this up. It's just a feeling. But when coaches are fired in the middle of the year, they're usually very deserving of it. I think Josh McDaniels was very deserving of it. And I feel like oftentimes you can see a team just come out of nowhere and have a really good game. Do you think that's a possibility for this Raiders team, or are we just looking at it and saying Aiden O'Connell, no thank you?
Anything can happen. It's not like the Giants are a great team either, but they have a lot more talent. And no offense, I still think Dave Ball, even with the mess this year's been, is one of the better coaches in the NFL. You look how good the offense was last year. Jones has been hurt, and people need to remember the Giants started with a miserable slate of games. They played some of the best defenses in the league the first 4 or 5 weeks. And then since they've had Tyrod Taylor, and last week, Danny DeVito, it's been tough. But what's been amazing is their defense was one of the worst defenses in the league last year, And now all of a sudden they're starting to look good defensively. So that's, again, coaching. It's not like they made a huge upgrade or a bunch of upgrades on the defensive side of the ball in the last year. I just don't know how the Raiders are in a very good position to win. It's not like the Vegas home advantage is that big either in that stadium. It's like, I know 3 Giants fans that are going to the game today. So I really let's put it this way. I'm in an eliminator pool that I can't believe I've made it this far. I took the Giants. I did. And I feel relatively good about it.
Okay. Are you playing anyone other than Saquon on that side of the ball, especially with Darren Waller heading to IR? Are there any receivers
for DFS?
Yeah, for DFS.
Wan'Dale Robinson for me, yes, is absolutely somebody you should consider. If you look at the games that he's played with Daniel Jones, huge difference to the games when either Tyrod Taylor or Taylor and DeVito have been in there. And he's in that price range, which, again, all you want from people on DK in cash games to consistently win money is you want to try to get 3 times their salary in points. And I think he's 3,500 this week. So you're talking about basically you need just over 10 points. And, I mean, he's been right around that range most weeks that Daniel Jones has started. I think he's a good play. And, yeah, Barkley is somebody that in cash game lineups, he's in a majority of them. Like, I've tried to find the money. You know, Nate was making a great point of, you know, you could stack the Panthers quarterback receiver. I've got a lot of lineups with Mac Jones and Demario Douglas, which that's 8,900 for your QB and wide receiver. And that's allowed me to have like Kamara and Barkley in my lineup, which they both have great matchups this week. I would highly recommend, if you can, try to get them both in there. If it's, again, not a big multi-entry event, and then just try to kind of build your rest of your lineup around that.
All right. So, Dave, can you take over for the Las Vegas side of the ball? Are you playing anyone? Do you feel good about Jacoby Myers? What are you thinking there?
I don't mind Aidan O'Connell, to be completely honest with you. So, look, am I running to put Jacoby in my lineup? No. But I'm okay with him as a flex. Obviously, you're starting Adams and Jacobs, right? I mean,
yeah, Jacobs had like 8 targets last time, and I think 7 receptions when O'Connell started. So PPR leagues, Jacobs should be pretty high on the running back rankings.
Absolutely. So, and I mean, as weird as it sounds, I don't mind starting the Raiders defense, right? I mean, Max Crosby is a one-man wrecking crew. So,
you saw what Seattle did to that offensive line for the Giants.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, look, those 3/4, they're still a decent team. You know, Jimmy Garoppolo was never the answer in my opinion. I'm waiting for him to eventually get picked up by the Patriots, likely. But apparently he's requested to be cut. But yeah, I mean, those guys are reliable. Devontae Adams, he's just, I mean, remember what he did last year? It was like game 16 or 17 with
Love.
Who was the quarterback? The old New England Patriots guy.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Stidham.
Stidham. I mean, he went off for like 180 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, Adams is just QB proof. You're absolutely firing those guys up.
All right. And Nate, I know we're missing Divine Diablo and Luke Masterson this week on the Raiders side of the ball. What are you looking at for the IDP matchups in this game?
Yeah, I mean, you're still – Max Crosby's always going to be a must start. And that's from about the only person on the defensive line. Linebacker Robert Spillane inherits a much more, I'd say, I don't want to say solid role because it's still Robert Spillane, but you have no other linebackers truly going to compete for touches. He's even been questionable, banged up. And so that brings up a name that I have not had a chance to say is Amari Burney. And he's a converted safety. He's a linebacker that has very little upside outside of this one specific matchup because process of elimination. No one else is available. So he's going to step in, play, I think, significant snaps. The Giants allow more tackles to the linebackers than like the safety or the defensive ends. And so I think that might build, if you were just decimated, we might remember that name and come at the end of this week, say, okay, Amari Burney had, 8 tackles and maybe a tackle for a loss, or it wouldn't shock me to see a specific splash because everything's going to be funneled in between the hashes. I don't see them going deep. I think Wan'Dale might try to burn him once or twice, but I think it'll be Saquon and Wan'Dale pretty much over the middle. And that brings up Nate Hobbs. Nate Hobbs is an interesting defensive back. He only saw 60% of the snaps last week, but when he's on the field, he's right in line for a heavy role, potentially but it's Vegas. There's not much. The one thing I want to bring up is that the New York Giants pass rush, which is without Leonard Williams now because he's gone, is that Dexter Lawrence had 15 pressures last week. 15 pressures. And then Kayvon Thibodeau's has been amazing. But the Raiders, surprisingly, if I asked you guys and said, how are the Vegas Raiders offensive line? You would look at the number of sacks they've given up, which is about 15. Aiden O'Connell got sacked, I think, 7 times last time he played.
A lot the Chargers game.
But the Raiders are the third best in terms of pressures allowed. So they're surprisingly not allowing a ton of pressures, but I still think Kayvon Thibodeau, still think Dexter Lawrence is in play. Clearly, Bobby Okereke is a stud, but I want to watch the guy who's really incredible, great linebacker, just doesn't get enough play is Micah McFadden. If he could get 100% of the snaps, he would be a really viable and valuable.
It was
linebacker.
7 times in that game. Yep. 7 for 50 yards.
Yep, and that's a rough one. That's the only thing I worry about Aiden O'Connell is they're going to try to put a ton of pressure on him, and hopefully he doesn't hold on to the ball like he did last time out. But Tyler, going back to what you said from the very get-go as well, is like this matchup when you fire a coach, I look at that as them. They were rejoicing. Supposedly they were dancing when Josh McDaniels was fired and the team was happy. I don't know how much that's far-fetched and made up, but I can see. Would you be shocked if 80% of the total touches went to Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs? I wouldn't be. I love both of those two totally. So that's the IDP side, guys. I am going to finish up the rest of this Chiefs game. Obviously, as always, really wonderful seeing you 3 beautiful faces. And when the game's over, if you're still going, I will try to jump back on and say hi. Dave, good to see you, buddy. Keith, pleasure as always.
Yes, sir.
Bye,
buddy.
Tyler. Talk to you guys later. Anytime or always. See ya.
All right. So before we move on to the next game, the Dallas at Philly, we got a question from Crispy here in a Superflex league. 6-point passing touchdown. QBs have been rough for him. He's got Zach Wilson, Bryce Young, Brett Rippon. I think he's asking which 2 to start. Dave, you want to take that one?
We just did this question. I thought I picked Zach Wilson.
Okay. All right. I must have.
Yeah,
we might have because I was taking notes and I might have. We did.
Gotcha.
Thank you. And Jorge's back. I would actually go Bryce Young over Zach Wilson.
I would too, but I also, it's not exactly a slam dunk by any means. As he was,
you're not happy about it.
No.
Yeah, it's one of those that you're upset. So, Jorge, we're about to move on to Dallas at Philly since we just finished up the Giants and Vegas game.
All righty, sounds good. Like you said, Dallas at Philadelphia, -3, 46.5. Out Boston, Scott. Keith, I know your time's running out with us. I know you're a busy man on Sunday mornings. So let's get to some of these DFS plays. Who you like in this matchup?
Man, I know I'm going to regret it, but I really like Dak a lot. He's my favorite QB along with Mac Jones in my cash lineups. Again, the reason that they're in the same conversation is a difference in price. And that's part of why I like Dak so much. There's really 3 from the main slate today, what I call kind of sure thing QBs, right? Like where we know what we're going to get out of them. And they're Lamar, Hurts, and Dak. And Dak is like $1,500 cheaper than Lamar and Hurts. And if you look at it, I think not enough has been made that Dak came into the season with a new offensive coordinator, a new number 2 receiver, a new tight end. The Pollard upgrade has not been quite as great as everybody expected. It has been an upgrade, but it's not like they're running it down teams' throats. And so it's no surprise it's taken a while for them to kind of get this offense going. But these last 2 weeks, I mean, on DraftKings alone, he scored 57 points the last 2 weeks. He'd only scored 57.4 points in his previous 4 games before that. They're starting to spread the ball out. They're starting to take more chances down the field. They're getting Brandon Cooks more involved. Jake Ferguson's becoming a real option. So I do like playing Dak, and you have options. If you want to stack him with CeeDee Lamb, the Eagles are awful versus number 1 receivers, are awful versus receivers in general. I know they just made the trade for Kevin Byard, but it's only his second start, so they're still going to have some issues with that. Or if you want to go cheaper, you could stack them with Brandon Cooks or Jake Ferguson, who Cooks is 4,400. In the last 2 games, the Eagles, just the number 2 receivers, have given up 17 receptions for 170 yards and a touchdown. And then on the other side, I kind of just have a feeling this is a Devontae Smith game. I don't really have any reason for that other than I think Bland's going to be on Brown a lot, and it's tough to just – I mean, Brown is 80, I think 300 this week. It's really tough to put a wide receiver, even as great as A.J. Brown, in your lineup if it's a cash game lineup and feel good about it when they are playing the number 2 team versus wide receivers and a cornerback who's been one of the better lockdown corners in the league this year. So that to me means maybe Devontae gets a little bit more involved. And it also is going to be interesting to see if the Eagles try to just run on this Cowboys team. And in that case, I think Swift is a justifiable play. And also, I think, Jorge, you mentioned him earlier, Kenneth Gainwell could be more involved. Because, again, if they run it a lot more and that's kind of their game plan to slow it down, it could end up being. But in big contests, I think this is going to be a shootout ultimately. So if it's 150 entries, you can go any way you want. You can go Hurts Brown, you can go Hurts Smith, you can go Hurts Goddard. You can, run players on both sides. There's a lot of different options. But for cash games, I'd be looking at Dak and then one of their receivers as, kind of my slam plays.
Dave, let me ask you a question. Chances are you're probably starting Tony Pollard. What do you make of Tony Pollard this year, just in terms of living up to hype or lack thereof? As well as what you think about this matchup this week against Philadelphia?
Exactly what I thought before the season started. He is not a number 1 running back. He's not a bruiser.
Wish we could have talked before the season then, Dave, about that. That would have saved me a lot of trouble in some of these fantasy leagues.
Everyone was was hating on me when I was saying Zeke really helped Pollard because he gave him 15 quality touches every single game. He was amazing, pass catching running back, Tony Pollard, obviously, and did a really good job in the middle of the field, but he's not a bruising running back. If you're 3rd and 3, are you trusting Tony Pollard or Ezekiel Elliott? You're absolutely giving him that. So, I'm not a big fan of Pollard. I don't think he lasts for the rest of the season, to be honest. He's just not capable of handling that kind of workload.
Now let's stick with you and let's talk about Brandon Cooks. We've seen his usage go up the past few weeks. Is he sliding into must flex territory for you, or possibly even wide receiver 2, or is that too ambitious?
Sorry, say again. Who?
Brandon Cooks.
Brandon Cooks. Can you trust him? I don't know. I mean, I know he scored against the Chargers, but he's just unreliable, to be
14 points
honest.
or more in back-to-back game. The PPR had at least 4 targets. I just think that if you look, he is somebody who is a legit, NFL wide receiver. When he's been given a piece of the pie, he's always produced. And I think the Cowboys are realizing for their offense to really be what they want this year, they can't just throw it to CeeDee Lamb and run the ball with Tony Pollard. And that's why the last 2 weeks you see Ferguson being more involved. You see Cooks being more involved. And I'm with you. I don't know if he's there as a consistent play, but I do really like him this week against the Eagles team that is just awful. They give up 17 receptions and 191 yards per game to wide receivers. So I think Lamb and Cooks both could have, good days for what you're expecting from them.
Let me ask you this. If you had a choice between Michael Thomas or Brandon Cooks, who are you taking?
We would get into the great point you made earlier, right? That if it's a matchup where I feel pretty good, I win. If I just get, 8 to 10 points, I would go with Michael Thomas. But if I think I need anything more than that, I would definitely go with Brandon Cooks.
Yeah. That's my only thing is just the unreliability. He has the potential for 30 points. He also has the potential for 0, and you wouldn't be surprised.
Yep.
Switching over to the IDP side of the ball, let's start with Philadelphia. Hassan Reddick has just been on a tear, going back into week 5. I mean, the sacks have just been there 2, 2.5, 0 last week, 1 last 2 weeks ago, rather 1 last week. Now, Nate and I, we've talked on Shoot the Gap numerous times. It is really hard, to trust which Philadelphia defensive lineman is really going to show out. Reddick has been on the hot streak, but it's very plausible that in 3 weeks, Josh Sweat becomes the player that goes on the hot streak. But for right now, I would have liked to see a higher tackle floor with Hassan Reddick. However, he draws a tough matchup this week. You're probably starting him, as a DL2, hoping for DL2 value. I don't know if you're necessarily going to get DL2 production. Actually, to be honest with you, if I had to pick one, I'd probably go Josh Sweat over Hassan Reddick. Nakobe Dean coming off of a 13 tackle performance last week, solo tackle performance. Again, 2 weeks before 2 tackles. What is Nakobe Dean? Who is he? What is he going to be? I don't think he's must start.
Can I give you something a little bit, Jorge, on him? As a Georgia fan, he is undersized, but he is a unbelievable tackler. And if he can stay healthy, because they have, given him those 2 monsters in front, which he needs, and Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, I think, obviously right now it's unreliable, but I think it would not surprise me at all if by the end of the year, Nakobe Dean's somebody who is consistently putting up 8 to 10 tackles every single game. I saw it at Georgia. He has to have room to operate, though, because he's going to get eaten alive otherwise, but it's a little easier to do when you have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, opening up that front for you.
Well, let's talk about Jalen Carter specifically.
No, don't do it, Jorge. Don't do it.
I didn't say Jalen Carter and insert team that should have drafted him. I just said Jalen Carter. We look at the past 3 weeks, 5 total pressures, no sacks, a couple of quarterback hits, nothing spectacular. What is spectacular is his win rate against offensive linemen. He leads all defensive linemen, and it's including interior rushers as well as edge rushers, with a win rate of 22%. Super elite. It's one of those things where, man, he just needs to start hitting home, start getting those sacks. But it's like he's right there, and you kind of want to get ahead of the train there. Chances are in your IDP Dynasty leagues, he's not available. In fact, I can guarantee you he's not available. But for redraft, whatever app you're using where you can like keep tabs on a player and it'll notify you when someone does something, I would do that. I would keep Jalen Carter in the back of your mind, especially in defensive tackle leagues, as far as viability and starting in the coming weeks, not just yet, but in the coming weeks. One of the things that we put out at Fantasy and Frames is called the IDP Roundup, which Nate Markham, after every single week, he looks at every single game that was just played, looks at all the relevant defensive information that you need to take away from the game, combines that with all the fantasy relevance that you need from these takeaways. And we talk about the Dallas Cowboys. One of the concerns here at linebacker, no more Leighton Vander Esch. Damone Clark saw his snaps drop nearly down to 80% from 100% in week 8. We talk about Marquise Bell a little bit earlier, converted safety playing linebacker. He is the cheat-coded defensive back. But I'm kind of staying away from the linebacking situation here. The pass rushers outside of Micah Parsons, because he's Micah Parsons, and he can be lined up over tackle, over edge. Not concerned with him at all. So that's probably the players that I'm most confident in. Jaron Curse and Donovan Wilson have been to use a term that the guys on Fourth and Frames have used every single week. He has been very mid. So they are. Wow, I can't believe I just did that. Yeah.
Do you feel 10 years younger?
I feel something. I don't know about 10 years younger. Excuse me. So those are my plays right there for IDP. Let's go to the Sunday night matchup here. Keith, big one, -2.5, 15.5. I believe it's the highest over under for the week. Who are we paying up for? Because chances are you're not getting a bargain value on anybody, or are we?
This is a game, obviously you should be just doing showdown slates. If you've listened to our stuff, last year on Fantasy Frames or this year in Fantasy Six Pack, me and Joe Matz talk all the time about don't do the Thursday to Monday slate. It makes it so much more difficult to cash because there's so many more players, so many more variables. But for the single showdown, I think this Bengals team has what we all expected, right? Like Burrow was injured. I was trying to tell everybody that, like, he wasn't moving the way he was. And that's why the offense was the way it, has been. I wish this game was not a night game. I don't want to be morbid or anything, but just like what happened last year, I think it was a really questionable decision to, again, have this game at night with what happened with Hamlin. But for showdown lineups, to me, you either have to put Chase or Josh Allen as your captain. Like, you just have to. This is one of those, don't get cute, spend the money. I would lean Chase just because Allen, has a little bit of injuries and stuff coming in, and the Bengals defense has been playing really well the last couple of weeks. But again, like somebody like Irwin, who has been involved a good bit, we were talking about, it's kind of crazy how they're using Higgins. He's one of the cheaper plays I would look at. And I kind of like the Bengals defense, like, especially if you're like me who thinks Cincy's going to win this game. I wouldn't necessarily mind going with Allen as the captain, because if the Bengals win, that means, he's going to be having to chuck it and do a bunch of stuff late. And then you should be able to, have Chase obviously in your lineup, maybe put Irwin in the Bengals D. And then obviously Kincaid needs to be in every single lineup until, Knox comes back. It's just, he is going to, I think, end up being finally that number 2 receiver. And I'll continue to bench Gabe Davis in all my fantasy leagues, and he'll score 15 to 20 points, and I'll be frustrated and then talk myself the next week into doing it again. But he's another guy obviously you should pay attention to, but it's so frustrating because Diggs, is going to get 8 to 10 receptions. And it's like, I keep going, Gabe Davis can't be scoring a touchdown on 14% of his receptions, and he keeps scoring a touchdown on 14% of his receptions. So I'm just really looking forward to this game overall. And I think if Cincy wins, we're right back to year 3 of everybody being like, what's wrong with the Bengals? And then it's like they turn on a switch. And I think it's going to be, them and the Chiefs probably in the AFC title game again at the end of the season.
Being a Gabe Davis owner hurts your mind, body, and soul.
Right?
It's brutal, man. Like, yeah, he's such a talented receiver, but he's just so inconsistent. You feel bad putting him on your bench, and then you'll
feel bad putting him in your lineup.
Yeah, then you feel bad. Yeah, there's no. It's a very hate situation with him, but yeah, it's rough.
So then, let me ask you a question, Dave: T. Higgins or Gabe Davis?
It's T. Higgins, just because I like the opportunity he's going to get. Gabe Davis, he's such a talented receiver, and I just don't know why Josh Allen doesn't throw him the ball more. He obviously loves, Stephon Diggs, but I need that consistency. That's what I look for in every single lineup, consistency, and Gabe Davis just doesn't have it.
All right. Tyler, the name I didn't think I'd be saying, for most of the season. I was kind of hoping I would have been in the offseason. Irv Smith, we look at his targets last week. 4, Tyler Boyd's 3. I don't know if we're seeing a decline in Boyd targets or it just was an anomaly in week 8. But we are seeing a slight increase in Irv Smith's. Any rationalization to say, given the over-under of this matchup, that he could be a potential start for you at all? Really? I mean, you could say no. We can just.
I can't figure it out, man. Like,
Irv Smith is Kyle Pitts 2.0. They're probably related. Maybe they're cousins or something. I don't know.
Don't you dare, Kyle Pitts. See, Irv Smith is not good and has never been good. He's one of them that people have just wanted to be good.
There you go.
That's true. Yeah.
This was his opportunity. All right. Joe Burrow has been getting tight ends paid for years. He got Hayden Hurst a contract. He got CJ Uzama a contract. And this was Irv Smith's opportunity to come in and show that he is what people thought he was coming out of Alabama, and he's not shown anything.
It's tough when you're a best case scenario, the number 4 receiver on the team. Obviously you got Chase, Higgins, and Boyd. Is he even number 4? I don't know. I mean, he's best.
But that's been the case for the past 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Hayden Hurst has performed.
They're a team that doesn't need tight ends. There's certain teams that just need tight ends to function. Like obviously the Chiefs, they rely on Travis Kelce to get him down the field. You don't really need that in Cincinnati. Those 3 receivers are just so talented. So, I just don't see a need for him there in Cincinnati.
Yeah, I don't have Irv Smith anywhere near playable territory. You know, if he could catch a touchdown, that's always possible, but I'm willing to be wrong on that, and I'll go elsewhere, play K-Dot and someone like that.
I've got a couple questions in the chat. Both are IDP related. We got Tootsie Pop 6. Just lost Quay Walker. It's for IDP Flex. Do I start Quiddy Page, Jermaine Pratt, or Jamin Davis, or look for more? I think you have consistency in Pratt. I like him in this matchup, and the defense should be on the field a lot just because these offenses are elite and therefore will be trying to basically, have the time of possession in their favor. So give me Jermaine Pratt. For me, after that, it'd be Davis and then Quiddy Pay. So thanks for jumping on and asking. And then finally, Ken Sonnenberg here. Thank you very much for sticking around. First of all, it's Ken Sonnenberg's birthday, so happy birthday to Mr. Ken.
Happy birthday.
He has a question: Hassan Reddick, TJ Edwards, or Roquan Smith? Pick 2. It is hands down smash Roquan and TJ Edwards. High tackle floors, both of them. Reddick, you're hoping for the sack. We talked about him a little bit earlier. The base floor for tackles has just not been there for Reddick. So give me the 2 linebackers, Edwards and Roquan. Thank you very much for your question. Speaking of IDP, let's just finish this one out. Buffalo, Gregory Rousseau, and I think Leonard Floyd, they have both been playing high in terms of win rate, pressure rate, most importantly, snap percentages. Those are the guys that have been on the field more often than not. You go to the linebacking situation, Tyrell Dodson, Terrell Bernard, tackle efficiency, 16.7 and 10.4%. You wish Terrell Bernard had a higher efficiency there, but he is playing 100% of snaps, whereas Dodson last week, 2.7%. His lack of third down snap share percentage is concerning. And of course, for IDP, you want players who are on the field at all times. Obviously, that works for offense too. But when he has been on the field, again, he's been the more efficient tackler than Bernard. Something to pay attention to. In terms of defensive back, Jordan Poyer has been playing closer to the line of scrimmage. Jordan Poyer, Buffalo Bills safety, has been a stalwart for IDP managers at defensive back for years because he's basically been a de facto linebacker playing in run support, getting you those tackle numbers. And for a good chunk of the year, that just hasn't been there, but you're starting to see it happen now. So I could say you could insert Jordan Poyer into your lineups. For the Bengals, Trey Hendrickson, defensive end. Yes, I mentioned Jermaine Pratt just a few seconds ago. Logan Wilson, Dax Hill, defensive back. All of those I feel comfortable starting this week. Cameron Britt Taylor, cornerback, has also been showing a decent tackle floor and what should be a pass-heavy offense. I would roll with him this week also. All right. That wraps up that game. Let's finish up the show with the last game of Week 9. Chargers at Jets, -3.5. 40 over under, out Josh Palmer. Tyler, what do we like outside of Garrett Wilson for the Jets and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall for the Jets?
No one. Alan Lazard has had some weeks where he's gone above 40 yards. That's not doing it for me. I will look elsewhere. Tight end, Tyler Conklin, CJ Uzama, neither of them have done much. Zach Wilson he simply cannot support fantasy-wise more than one player, and Garrett Wilson is it. It's just not going to happen. So I will absolutely play Breece Hall. I will be playing Garrett Wilson. I will be avoiding the remainder of the Jets offense this week, though.
Going back to Tootsie Pop 6, $20 donation to Fantasy and Frames. Thank you so much. Thank you for your patronage.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bill.
That's Rachel, right?
Let's go to we're getting there. Let's talk about the Chargers. No Josh Palmer. Quentin Johnston. What are our thoughts with Quentin Johnston, given the potential opportunity he's going to be getting on Monday night?
I don't know about that, man. I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed in Justin Herbert of late. I mean, he obviously loves Keenan Allen. He throws the ball to Austin Eckler. But I don't know, he likes his tight ends. I mean, Parham is one of his favorites. They're just not using Quentin Johnston, a first-round draft pick. absolutely baffles me. I thought when Mike Williams went down that we were going to see a ton more Quinton Johnson, but just way too unreliable. But he's running good routes, which is surprising. I'm just not putting him in my lineup. I just couldn't do that with confidence.
Keenan Allen should assume slot role here, avoiding the Sauce Gardner matchup. Are we concerned at all that Sauce Gardner follows Keenan Allen, or is it just, he hasn't been doing that. He hasn't been following, and Keenan Allen should go off this week against the secondary for the Jets. Tyler.
I would be surprised if Sauce Gardner followed him around. I think he's played 4 snaps in the slot all year. I mean, he's exclusively been an outside corner for them. So they could, I guess, since it seems like Keenan Allen is kind of their only real option in the passing game outside of maybe Gerald Everett. But I would be surprised at this point, and I think they're gonna shift some coverage toward him, but he's not going to get followed around by their top corners. I'm still playing Keenan Allen for sure. I'm firing him up as a wide receiver 1 option, and I feel pretty good about
it. Switching over to the Jets and Chargers. I mean, look, you're starting Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert. Is Josh Kelly even somebody here, David, that we're thinking about, or is that just more of a matchup dependent start?
That's a hopes and dreams play there. I wouldn't really rely on him. Maybe he falls in the end zone if they're on the 1 yard line, but no, I'm definitely not playing him. I do like Parham this week though, especially with Palmer out. I think Parham gets a bit of a look. Maybe Gerald Everett, but those two could be sneaky plays.
Parham, and had I think his best game of the season last week with Everett out. So I either red zone touches or targets have been there for Parham. So Everett coming back, notwithstanding, that could be the guy that I think they feature going forward. But it does scare you that they would split time into each other. Going here for the IDP side of the ball, you have Quinton Williams. Quinnen Williams, excuse me, for the Jets. I like Bryce Huff. He gets sacks. Again, maybe not somebody you're starting in your IDP league, but those tackle props or sack props over on DK Sportsbook. Yes, I cashed in on one of those last week with him. So somebody I would definitely still be very high on. His pressures totals have been phenomenal the past month. And there's just no real sign of that real slowing down. At linebacker, Quincy Williams, CJ Mosley. On the flip side, we go to the Chargers. Derwin James, Joey Bosa. Hell, even Khalil Mack has a great matchup this week. Both edge rushers really do against
Speaking
this
of which,
Jets line.
I got a question for you, Jorge. So I've got Khalil Mack right now in my linebacker spot in a league, and Devondre Campbell and Devin White are sitting on the bench. Should I entertain?
You should be swapping in Devondre Campbell because the report just came out that fellow Green Bay Packer linebacker Quay Walker is out, which means tackle volume and opportunity are going to go Campbell's way. And Campbell came back last week after missing some time and lit it up. And now you're telling me there's not going to be a lot of competition for tackles? Yeah, hands down, swap out Mack and put in Devondre Campbell. And with that, that's going to wrap up the rest of week 9. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. I want to thank all the people who joined us here on the show to give their fantasy advice and expertise. I want to thank Chris Burns for going throughout the entire night and joining us on Zero Sleep. I want to thank Preston Evans for joining us, going through with the pie bet. If you haven't already, go back to where we were talking about the Saints and the Bears. He fulfilled his bet. It was a great pie bet moment. Again,
I was impressed with that video. That video was awesome.
Thank you.
That he put together. That was cool.
The promo video. Thank you. I appreciate that. Folks, we're reaching noon, wrapping up a little bit early. Go set those lineups. Get your food. Get your drinks ready. Have fun in week 9. Look out for our waiver wire articles on Tuesday. Look out for our starts and sits on Friday, both on offense and defense. We got the mailbag show with Gator J and Zach on Tuesdays. We got Wednesday Fantasy and Frames Power Hours with Dynasty 365, Fourth and Frames, and Shoot the Gap. Thursdays, we got our mailbag show. And then we're right back here next Sunday, as we are each and every Sunday, with the Fantasy and Frames pregame show. So thank you very much for everything. We appreciate all your support. And until then, we'll see you next time.